Please note that this content is for adults only. Viewer discretion advised. If you haven't yet, hit the subscribe, like, and share. Hello everyone and welcome back to another live stream with me, Grizzly. This is Grizzly True Crime, and today we're going to continue discussing this Franke, Jodi Hildebrandt case. Oh my goodness, it is quite a rabbit hole, I must say. I've been in it for quite some time now, taking lots of notes that I still want to organize because there's so much to tell you. Welcome to all my moderators. Thank you so much for everything you do. We have the best mods here. If you want to buy them coffees, you can go to my website, to the support page, scroll down, and you can see where to buy the mods. Coffees over there. Welcome to all my patrons, members. Of course, Patreon and YouTube membership are two separate things. So thank you to everyone who's made it over to Patreon. And welcome to all my subscribers, including all the new subscribers. We hit a new milestone yesterday, and there's lots of new faces here. So welcome. So yeah, this case, as I say, it's very complex. There's many parts to it. There's many people, and we're just going to be bit by bit breaking it down. So yesterday we started with an introductory case overview and watching some of the most important video clips from the rescue of a 12-year-old boy who escaped out of a window, out of a home where his mom was visiting. But it didn't seem like she was living there. She was kind of going back and forth. It was Jodi Hildebrandt's house. Jodi Hildebrandt was, and this is in Ivins, Utah. Jodi Hildebrandt was a counselor, an author, a life coach, and an alleged cult leader. If you look more into Connections, something that she had started, an online brand and counseling business, and she had this whole vision for everything, I could see why people are saying it's an alleged cult, because it's got all the warning signs, right? Isolation, controlling people with food, like aka starvation, all the things, right? Fear, buzzwords, rebranding things. If you don't agree with her, she calls it distortion. You don't agree with Jodi Hildebrandt? Distortion. Your thoughts are distorted. So, what I want to do today is focus on, because many people do know about this case, and of course there's lots of content out there because this really was big in the news 6 months ago when Jodi Hildebrandt and Franke were arrested. Okay? Then it was massive news. At that point, if you will remember then you remember we did talk about it and we looked at some of the clips of Franke. I was a little reluctant to cover it back then because, you know why? I was worried that it's like, well, if we're going to call them out, because we didn't know at that point how bad the child abuse was. Oh my goodness, this is so much worse than anyone could imagine. But at the time, I was like, okay, but if people are going to red flag them and call them out, right before they got arrested, right? Everyone was already talking about it. There was a petition signed to stop their content. I'm like, well, there's probably another 1,000, family vloggers to call out. So many people were exploiting, and still are, unfortunately, their children, shoving cameras in their children's faces 24/7. When they wake up, they're filming it. When they're eating, they're filming it. When they're traveling to school, filming it. I mean, Franke, if you didn't know, she became well known. She had 2.5 million subscribers fairly quickly. A lot of subscribers. She said she was making millions of dollars. She had tons of sponsorships and everything, right? So this was her income source. But it cost the children their entire childhoods, because she did it from 2015 until around late 2021. Another reason to stop doing it was because YouTube demonetized that type of content for kids. And her sponsors stopped sponsoring her because of all the petitions and the red flags pointing out her behavior, which was child abuse in many people's minds. But I was a little bit worried back then because I'm like, if we're going to call her out, and I'm the type that once I'm onto something, I'm like, well, how are we going to not call everyone else out? You know what I mean? This is now like very hectic because there's so many people that do this, and I wish they wouldn't. Also, because if you've been here for a long time, we cover lots of cases where there's child exploitation, child sexual abuse materials. Think of the Madeline Soto case now, the theories going around there about all the networks that Stefan Stones, the suspect, could be involved in. Well, what do you think those guys are watching, in their free time? They're going to watch all these family vlogs as well. Don't post your kids online. Don't. It's not safe for them, Oh man, it's just like, this case is very upsetting. So, before we get into this video, it's my little rant for the day, my little intro, I just quickly want to read this one article to you so we can just get on the same page of who we're looking at today. I've also done some digging into the background of Ruby Franke and Kevin Franke. Kevin Franke is the husband. He filed for divorce, but I don't think they're divorced yet. We'll get into that now. I just quickly want to show you this one, and then we'll look at the video together. Today, we're going to be watching the video interview. Tomorrow, we're going to be listening to the audio interview because Kevin Franke has been interviewed by the police at least twice. Tanya, thank you so much. From South Africa, I really, really appreciate it. Okay, so the husband of Ruby Franke, the disgraced, of course, I just wish there were more of them, actually. One more rant. There's people that adopt kids and then they vlog the crap out of them. Then they decide it's not really for them. Then they give the kids back. Oh my word. And then they just stop. They continue vlogging, but without the kid. And people are like, where's this little kid? Oh yeah, no, we just gave them back. What? My goodness. Okay, so make sure you are subscribed, because if you do want to follow this case with me, we're going to have many episodes, I'm sure, many videos, many live streams, because there's a lot to discuss. Many, many layers, okay? The husband of Ruby Franke, the disgraced parenting blogger, convicted of child abuse. No trial happened because she pleaded guilty, right? She got a deal. She's sentenced to 4 to 30 years. That's the total. That can only be a max of 30. Because I know they said 1 to 15 per count. She's got 4 counts that she pleaded guilty to. So I'm like, well, why is it not 1 to 15 times 4 is not 30? It's because the maximum can only be 30. Now, what if she gets out after 4 years? I'm going to be so pissed off. If Ruby Franke, I think Jodi Hildebrandt will be in longer, but the prosecutor believes that Ruby Franke is remorseful and all that. I'm like, whoa, if she gets out after 4 years, I'm going to be so mad. Okay, so the husband is the interview we're going to look at today, so we're focusing on this. The husband, the disgraced parenting blogger convicted of child abuse, told investigators that his wife's business partner, Jodi Hildebrandt, was a religious cult leader who emotionally manipulated people under the guise of therapy and ultimately separated him from his wife and children. I was completely cut off, Kevin Franke told police, describing his life of isolation roughly a year leading up to the arrests of his wife and Hildebrandt. Last month, this was an older article, last month both women were sentenced to up to 30 years. Wait, this article was published, not too old, March 22nd. Last month, they were sentenced to up to 30 years in prison for torturing 2 of Franke's children. Mallory, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. No, Aurora says she'll get out after 2 to 3 years. Stop it. Janelle says so many similarities to Lori Daybell. Yes, there are. So, wow. Up to 30 years. Please let it be 30. For torturing 2 of Franke's children. In a nearly hour-long interview, we're going to watch it, released Friday morning. I've defluffed any of the silent portions. I've just taken that out because there's no point in us watching silent portions, right? So, in nearly an hour-long interview, released Friday morning, in a trove of documents connected to the case, Kevin Franke detailed how his life was thrown into turmoil after Hildebrandt became connected to his family, especially in the wake of a major controversy involving the 8 passengers YouTube page in 2020. 8 passengers and a third wheel, which is Jodi Hildebrandt, who is quite the coercive controller, wedges herself into families, tries to get to the children, abuses the children. It's just like unbelievable. She did the same to her niece 15 years before. Jodi Hildebrandt has done this many times, it seems. So Suzanne says, thank you so much for being an advocate for these children. Oh, thank you so much, Suzanne. So the details of Kevin Franke's story veer into the bizarre with religious visions, secret papers, and unexplainable phenomena, such as plates flying across the room and breaking themselves against the wall. Now, I'm just going to be logical about that and say if you're hallucinating, check your smoothies, check your tea, make your own smoothies and tea, because to me, it would be quite plausible that Jodi Hildebrandt was putting hallucinogenics in the tea or in the smoothies or in the food or in the whatever. You know what I mean? Because he's an engineer, he's a professor, and he's starting to see plates flying and he just can't explain it. Okay then. Angela, thanks for being a member for 23 months. So, Kevin Franke, an engineer and college professor, told police that he couldn't make sense of some of the things he experienced. Check a tea. I can't explain it, but I saw it with my own eyes, he said. I don't have any way to explain it other than that there's some crazy-ish going on. How it started and then changed. Per Kevin Franke's account, his wife first started speaking with Hildebrandt toward the end of 2018. Soon after, Hildebrandt became Ruby Franke's therapist. But before that, Jodi Hildebrandt was the eldest son's therapist. How inappropriate of Ruby to be like, ooh, I'm going to make friends with my son's therapist that the church recommended. What? She's like, yeah, this is going to be my new bestie. Tell me everything. Okay, and started to speak with at least one, there we go, of the family's 6 children. Other way around, though, according to everything I've researched. Kevin Franke said his first impressions of Hildebrandt's business, Connection Classrooms, was that it was a bunch of men-hating women looking to tear down their husbands. But he reluctantly began attending a Zoom-based men's group and found it led to improvements in his marriage. That's called denial, unfortunately. Gerda's like, and a witch, if you ask me. That's my description of her. Yeah, we're talking about Jodi. Art Lover says, Kevin Franke is the biggest wimp I've ever seen. That's why yesterday I said, I think he was completely emasculated. But I got a little bit, oh man, I've got to hold back, we just don't know. But we'll discuss some things as we watch the interview, because I'm just like, come on, dude, red flag. Like, seriously, how could you just walk out of your children's lives? If I was one of his children, because I know people get defensive and say, he didn't do anything wrong. And people will get all snarky up in here and be like, listen, don't go after him. I'm not really going after him. I just put myself in the children's shoes and I think, damn, you really neglected them too, huh? You completely abandoned them to go and sort out some kind of porn issues, which is a red flag to me. Why? And I'm sorry to say it, but some of the kids were, according to Ruby and her vlogging, which she just wanted to tell the whole world, some of the kids are still like bedwetting. Like, why are they bedwetting at this age? That's a red flag. She also, at a hearing, said that one of the kids was watching porn since he was 3 years old and abused 20 other kids in the neighborhood. I'm like, what? Is she lying, or is that a red flag? Where did that kid get access to porn? Where did he learn it? Where did he watch it? I'm just like, this is all. I think there's so much more to the story, and I'm very worried about it, And I really think the dad still needs to take a lot of accountability, gut instinct. C. Taylor says, I don't trust Kevin either. And that's the thing people can't silence, is one owns gut instinct. So I'm not like out on the internet saying he is this and this and that. I don't know. I have no idea. But my gut instinct is saying, interesting. Okay then. So, he was crying. You'll see in the interview all about, I miss my wife. I love my wife. What about your kids? Oh, my word. Well, there's no tears, even from Ruby when she got arrested. Did you notice yesterday? No tears when she got arrested for what she just heard happened to her kids. Obviously, because she knew about it. But you know what I mean? Oh my word. Sorry that this is taking long to get through this article. We'll get to the video now. Okay, for replay watchers, just go to the timestamps, pinned comment. If you're only here for the interview and commentary and all of that, just go to the timestamps, okay? Don't shout at me. Just go to the timestamps. Jean says, I began saying my word, and now my granddaughter says it too. Thank you so much, Jean. So, they say, even there, it's like, well, these are all men-hating women. But okay, I'll join the group. All right. Then came the 2020 controversy that left the 8 passengers YouTube page reeling. This happened after Ruby Franke forced one of her children, a son, to sleep on a beanbag. Prior to this, the page was a lucrative source of income with millions of global followers. The page offered parenting and lifestyle tips. Parenting experts. Wow. Oh my goodness. Just be careful now. Not qualified parenting experts. Interesting. Who most of the channel wasn't like those happy family vlogs. It was like disciplinarian, like boot camp. Like, let me tell you how to absolutely drill sergeant your children. Let me tell you that they need to pay the price, like no matter what age, right? Oh my goodness. Okay. So, Bo Pete says the audio interview sheds a lot of light on Jodi and how she controlled the whole family. Don't judge Kevin until you hear it all. Okay, that's the point. We're going to be watching the video interview today and listening to the audio tomorrow. So make sure that you hear today and tomorrow, that we can all share our opinions as well. What do we think? You could share it today as well. I just mean, let's watch all of it, listen to all of it, and then we think again. Okay, because there's also the other side of the coin of saying maybe he was a victim of Jodi Hildebrandt and Ruby Franke too. Maybe. But when there's kids involved, come on, man. Protect the children. No matter what, protect the children. Oh my goodness, they're so vulnerable. Okay, so the channel went to hell, basically. The page offered parenting and lifestyle tips, although critics said Franke's parents exploited their children for views, as many unfortunately do. I'm not a fan of family vlogs at all. It burned down the YouTube channel overnight. We lost 90% of our income, Kevin Franke told police. It was hard. Kevin Franke told police that Hildebrandt influenced what his wife did to their son in the beanbag video. He added that after this humiliating episode regarding the YouTube page, his distraught wife turned to Hildebrandt for emotional support. If you didn't know the background of that story, the eldest son, well, I think he was late teens at that point, maybe he was 16, I can't remember his exact age, but late teens, he had pranked one of his younger siblings and said, hey, guess what? We're going to Disneyland tomorrow. Pack your bags, get dressed. And the little guy, got all dressed up and was all excited and went outside like ready for Disneyland. And then he laughed at him and just said, no, man, we're not going. It was just a prank. Now, obviously, kids often prank each other. The way to deal with that could be to be like, don't do that again. It hurts someone's feelings. Maybe teach them about that rather than be like, that's it, I'm taking your bedroom away. Because he had his bedroom taken away for 7 months. He had to sleep on a beanbag. First, they took his door away from his bedroom, no privacy. Then they took his entire bedroom away. And he slept on a beanbag for 7 months and said that on one of Ruby Franke's vlogs. And the whole world was like, what? So, they say in the spring of March of 2021, Hildebrandt told the Franke family that she was being haunted by shadow figures. Kevin Franke told police. Both the Frankes and Hildebrandt are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, so LDS, as you might know it. Okay, so to help with her spiritual affliction, Hildebrandt went to live with friends for several weeks, but later claimed she was being held hostage. There's a lot of stories there. We have to go through all of it, okay? Kevin Franke suspected in the interview that Hildebrandt fell out with her friends after they tried to introduce her to another cult leader. From where I stand now, these were cults, Kevin Franke told police, describing Hildebrandt as a cult figure, otherwise known as a coercive controller. Not long, I'm just saying, with that broad banner, usually cult leaders can go under that banner too, right? Okay, so they said not long after Hildebrandt returned to her own home in southern Utah, Kevin Franke and his wife visited Hildebrandt's home for the first time. He told investigators it didn't make sense how a therapist could afford a mansion in the Red Rock Desert outside St. George. Turns out, Jodi Hildebrandt was married to a doctor before, got divorced. She apparently had 2 kids. So she's been divorced. Some people even speculate on Reddit, so that's just speculation that she's been married multiple times. I could only find more conclusive research that says that she was married once to a doctor, she got divorced, and they had 2 kids, but the kids don't talk to her. Estranged from her kids. So how can people take advice of how to have this idyllic family life from someone who her family doesn't want to talk to her at all? It's just like, come on, man, I don't know, man. Her own kids are like, get away from me. And then the niece came forward, and then previous clients came forward. It's just like, oh, this is just so terrible. Lady in Grey, thank you. You said I have zero sympathy. Oh, my dad got custody of 3 girls in the 1970s when that never happened. I have zero sympathy for weak-minded Kevin. Oh, thank you for your sticker. Okay, so as you can see, this is just a quick overview. There's so much to discuss. Honestly, in this case, oh man, let me quickly show you this just so you can see pictures. Okay, so we've got Kevin Franke and Ruby Franke. Let me give some background. So, Ruby is now 42 years old, and I think he's 45. Ruby was the eldest of 4 siblings. She came from a family that are devout Mormons in Utah. She went to Utah State University. I'm reading from my notes, okay? She went to Utah State University majoring in accounting. But then when she got married to Kevin and they had lots of kids, they had 6 kids together, then she dropped out of college, so that she could be a stay-at-home mom. And that's when her idea was also born, when her youngest was 2 years old, to be like, ooh, YouTube, okay? So Kevin and Ruby allegedly met at a hot dog stand at a Utah State University campus, at the campus, right? And okay, they started talking. They realized they lived in the same apartment building. They hit it off, and it was like, okay, the rest is history. When Ruby was 18 and Kevin was 22 years old, they got married. That was in December of the year 2000, okay? After 3 years of marriage, they had their first daughter. During their marriage, they experienced 2 miscarriages. He has a BSc in civil engineering. And when their youngest was 2, they started posting on YouTube. So that was in January of 2015. This family vlogging was already quite popular from around 2008, I believe, when it started. And then it gained popularity by 2010-ish. So they actually started quite late, but it's when it was booming, right? So they started their channel in January of 2015. They posted 5 times a week. Well, they being Ruby. 5 times a week, every single day, 6 a.m. all the time, right? Within 2 years, they had 1 million subscribers. Like, oh my word. 1 million subscribers. You know, who's watching this stuff? That's what I worry about. Because she also posted little, a little teen at the time, shaving her legs for the first time. Who's tuning in for that? I'm a little worried about the audience, you know what I mean? Oh dear. Okay, so anyway, she became a stay-at-home mom. And then with their channel, they would always be very outspoken about their religious beliefs and their disciplinarian tactics, really. They were just like, this is how we discipline our kids, and they should learn to pay the price, okay, of whatever small things that they did. Let me just quickly see what here. Oh, yeah. So then when videos for featuring content for children became demonetized, it seems to me like at that point, Ruby lost interest. It was at the same time when people started flagging her content and saying this is not right and all of that. But it seems like she also lost interest because the money went way, way down. She said they lost 90% of the income. And because of all the petitions and things, sponsors also pulled out. So she moved on to other things, which would be starting the business or joining Jodi Hildebrandt's business. Now, here's what's interesting. I'm just quickly going to go flapping through my notes here. You've got to get some paper flapping here, which during trials we don't do, right? Wait, there's one more thing I just wanted to tell you about. Where is it? Actually, 2 more things. My goodness, I've been writing so many notes. In March of 2021, oh, thank you so much, Mrs. Melissa. In March of 2021, Jodi had a mental health crisis, and she spent 6 weeks at a friend's house. So Jodi at that point claimed that she was kidnapped, but the friends were saying that she was threatening to take her own life, and she was also making advances on the lady's husband who was trying to help her. And all of that. So Jodi then reached out to Ruby because they'd met at some seminar somewhere before. And that was around, well, they'd already been in contact. But she reached out to Ruby and said she really needs help. And then that's how she moved into the home. Ruby's like, you're going to come stay with us. And before long, Kevin Franke was sleeping on the couch. And before long, he was kicked out of the house. And Jodi was in the bed. Now, I don't know what happened there. I don't know if Ruby and Jodi ever, hooked up, or I don't know any of that, okay? I don't have any confirmation of that. I only know that Jodi wormed her way in to Ruby's entire life, to the point where Ruby was like, okay, I have to give over my entire YouTube channel and all my earnings, and just everything just goes to Jodi, which is like, whoa, there's a red flag for that cult type mindset. Just like, our work is not about money. It's about doing God's work. And so Jodi's the leader of that. So let's just give her everything. So I'm just giving you little highlights. At some point I have to make a big presentation. But we're trying to just chunk it to keep it short and keep our concentration spans rolling. Okay, so here's some pictures. And, when he says that he had no idea where his children were in the interview we're going to watch now, and he didn't want to elaborate on how they discipline their kids. I just find that concerning, because he was aware of the discipline part of it from all the videos that were out online. If you're looking for the channel, YouTube took it down. Okay, that one and connections gone. So yes, there's still little snippets people have. They put together little clips and things, but YouTube threatens to take other channels down. If I were to post all the clips, I'd be very scared of YouTube. Like, they're going to take my channel down because they don't want those clips out there. But then I would say address the bigger problem, right? Address the big problem. Okay, of people exploiting their children. Okay, so you've got a good overview, I would say, for today. If this is the first time here, you got to check out the playlist that I've made for this case for you. There's lots to watch and lots that we're compartmentalizing. Okay, so now let me get the interview, okay, and resize it because right now we can only see a water bottle. Here we go. So now you know a little bit about him. At this point, he had been separated from his wife for a few months. This was in August, right? The same day that his 12-year-old son escaped and went to call a neighbor for help. We looked at that yesterday. Shame. And he was completely emaciated. He was injured. He had those wrist and ankle injuries. I mean, the EMS that were there were saying, I'm going to cry. And the one guy said the injuries are just so terrible. He said you can actually smell the flesh. It was so terrible. Absolutely heartbreaking. So, I'm going off track because now I'm thinking of that. Let's just watch this. This is Kevin Franke. Same day that the little boy escaped. That's where I was going. And it's interesting that he was interviewed around the same time that, pretty quick. Someone tipped him off to go and fetch the kids. Don't know who he doesn't want to say. I would say it's probably Ruby. And so let's have a listen to what he says. Let me shut up and then we listen what he's got to say. Okay, so let me put the sound on. I boosted it for you and defluffed and all of that we like to do. Here we go.
Miranda rights before we start. We're just kind of ask you a few questions about your involvement. Okay, so first you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be held against you in the court of law. Okay, you have the right to an attorney or to have him or her present while questioning. If you cannot afford to hire one will be hired to represent you. If you decide to answer questions, you can stop at any time. Okay? Do you understand your rights?
I do.
Okay. Do you wish to speak to me now?
Well, I want to pick up my kids.
How about this? We're going to ask you some questions, and if you don't want to answer them, you just say, hey, man, I'm not going to answer that.
Sure.
And
But just say, hey, I'm not going to talk. That's not beneficial to you, and then we're done. You're nowhere, and we're nowhere. And
Sure.
you understand that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so just for starters, what was your full name?
Kevin William Franke.
How to spell that?
KevinWilliamFranke.
And what's your date of birth? What's a good address for you?
I'm not comfortable giving my address right now.
Okay. But you do live in Springville?
I do.
How long have you lived in Springville for?
I moved there in 2007 with my family, so
Okay.
was
And
there
how many-
17 years.
17. And how many kids do you have, Kevin?
I have 6 kids.
Also, I'm going to make commentary. So if commentary is not your thing, okay, you got to just go watch on where the body cams, and many people are just putting these videos out just as they are. Okay, I'll also make a case file for you at some point with just the raw footage. Okay, but today we're going to make commentary. I do also want to say the day after this interview, Kevin Franke over here actually called the police on his eldest daughter, the one who had been calling CPS and the police for a few times, since, when was her call? 2022, I believe. In 2022, she called them and said, can you just go check out? I think the kids are not eating. My mom's car hasn't been there apparently for 5 days. Can you just go check on them? And all of that. I'm going to address this one now, Mary. So he thought that when the police broke down the door of their Springville home, because he'd moved out, remember? And apparently Ruby was living in the Springville, Utah home. Jodi was out in Ivins, Utah. And the two youngest kids, their kids, were living with Jodi, being abused by her, starved, and all of that stuff, tied up, and all that we've already gone over, right? So 2 adult children out of the house, 2 teen children at some other lady's house called Pam, doing manual labor. It sounds like, what are they doing there? Like cleaning house, doing chores. It just sounds like same. And Pam, Ruby, Jodi, very connected with each other in this business of connections. So, yes. But it's just interesting that he didn't like that the eldest daughter was calling them out for the longest time. And then the next day thought, you know what? She's probably the one who broke into the door, not the police. The police actually had to tell him. It was us, obviously. And so he called the police on her. And he threatened to sue the police if they don't hold her accountable. Isn't that bad? My goodness. Mary said, found out yesterday that Jodi was a beauty queen at one point and a good singer. Now she doesn't shower and is a cutter. Her arms are destroyed. Apparently, yes. And I looked a little bit into it. And apparently, Jodi, on some of her, connections, videos and things, and in her book, she's got a book that says, you are not enough. Yeah, that's usually the opposite of what therapists will tell you. You are not enough is her book title. In some of her books, she said that she was molested as a child. I don't know how to censor that right now for YouTube. She was molested as a child. Her father was a colonel in the Air Force. She was isolated, bullied as a child, and all of that. And she had an eating disorder. So, you know what's terrible? Is when someone goes through a lot of childhood trauma and then abuses children. Like, what happens? Why? Why do you do that? Don't you know what it feels like to be a victim then of that abuse? Don't repeat that. Amy Short, so nice to see you. Said, thank you for doing all the work. So I don't have to. This is the case with a lot of information out there. Yeah, it's pretty tough to decipher at times, as you say. It's a lot. Okay, so we continue.
And what are their names?
Some of them are teenagers, 2 adults. Yeah.
So are they all living with you, or?
No, I haven't seen them for over a year.
Any of them?
No, none of them.
For a year?
Over a year.
Okay.
I've been in a separation.
From who?
From my wife and family.
What's your wife's name?
Ruby.
Ruby. When was the last time you saw Ruby?
The last time I saw her
Yeah.
was the 18th of this month. We met she requested me to sign over vehicles, or the titles to the vehicles, the vehicle that she drives, that were all in my name.
When's the last time you physically saw Russell or Eve?
The day that I moved out, July 24th, 2022.
24th of 2022.
Or July 25th, July 25th.
So it's my understanding that
And a pause. So he said he moved out in July of 2022, 24th or 25th of 2022. So he's been out of the house for quite some time then at that point. Not with, just because his wife told him to. And Jodi was now like moving in and controlling everything. But just walk away, even from your kids. Oh man, that just hurts my heart, Suzanne says, I was a therapist my entire life. At no point did I live with any clients. For crying out loud. Right? It's like a little bit of boundaries. But boundaries, it's not Jodi or Ruby's strong point. In fact, Ruby's got a little video out there. Well, there's clips that people have still shared. Her channel's obviously down. Where she's like, this is my house, okay? Which means that her kids have no privacy, no boundaries. She can know everything about them, basically dig through all this stuff, film whatever she wants, do whatever, because it's her house, her space, and anything that they have from her, like a phone or, a bed or anything, is just borrowed from her. Belongs to her, and that's it, okay? Also, I did look, where are all the children now? So 2 of them are adults studying, posting on Instagram, it seems like, and the others that are still minors are with DCYF. So that's sad. With Child Protective Services, that's as far as I could read, and I believe that Kevin is fighting to get full custody of them. But yet he's still got jail calls going with Ruby, so I just don't know. And he's still wearing his ring. So even though he's filed for divorce, he's still on the phone at his house wearing the ring. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. Right?
at least home here in Kayenta and Ivans. Have you been to that home?
No.
You've not been to that home?
No, I don't know. I don't know what's anything that's been going on.
Like, this is good, man. Like, I would love to be able to help you out with this, and like, I'm seeing a light at the end of the tunnel because I'm unaware of your involvement in what's really going on. So for you to say that you're unaware of the status of your kids kind of makes, I know that sounds kind of crummy to you, but it sounds kind of good to me. Like, who lives in that home with your, is it ex-wife? Is it currently a separated wife? Like, who lives in that home with your children?
To be honest, I don't know. I know that she's there with 4 of the children, and our 2 older children have moved out.
They're not at your home in Springville? And I'm not trying to trip you up. I can see you're hesitant to talk to me. I understand that.
Well, where I live, no,
Yeah.
I haven't seen them for over a year.
Okay. That's tough. I can only imagine how that feels, man. I got kids. And to not have seen them for that long, that would tear a little piece of my heart out.
Of age to drive. Does she drive?
I don't know.
Okay.
Like I said, I don't. Nothing is going on in their lives or anything going on.
How did you find out that you needed to?
That in itself is neglect. Why, Ox, you keep saying the same thing. He doesn't know anything during these interviews yet. Well, he could also be pretending to not know anything yet. You know what I mean? How do we know that he doesn't know anything? He did know about the discipline tactics, the religion, the everything that they had. He was so angry that his daughter went there the next day saying that she burgled the house because he's so worried that she apparently stole the journals and the pen papers, which are like sacred writings of Jodi, and that, you know, Ruby was writing down. That all very much sounds like Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow Daybell, right? Like all these secret scriptures and writings that they just have to share with the world because, you know, they're that special. Okay, so to lash out like that at his eldest, you know, to protect whatever they're writing there or doing, that's quite a red flag to me. And for him to be like, I have no idea. You were part of it. From 2015 to 2021, we watched him discipline his children on the YouTube channel. So he can't now be clueless. He's not like, I have no idea. We were the best parents ever. And now what happened? You should care where your kids are. You should know where they are at all times. They're your kids. So, yeah. And Max Bank says he has 6 children. Sorry for the caps. He has 6 children. He's angry with the one and saying he's going to sue the police if they don't arrest her or hold her accountable for trying to burgle the home. Okay. Doesn't seem to be talking to his eldest son. All right. And had just no idea. But yet was very much part of, and still will say he respects, you know, Jodi, and he still absolutely loves his wife, of course. But where is the protection for the children? No. No excuses here, I don't think. In my opinion.
Come here to 55 North Main Street.
I received a message that I needed to come pick up my kids from the police department in Highlands.
And who was that message from?
Well, I prefer not to say right now.
It would just help us a lot.
I'll try to figure out who reached out to you because it makes sense that that would happen. I'm just not aware of anyone who did that from our department.
Right. And I'm not comfortable saying right now who reached out to me.
Okay.
Okay.
So, you haven't seen any of your kids in over a year, you said?
That's correct.
And then, how old last time you saw her? How old is she now?
15.
She's 16. Okay. And then when all the kids left, Ruby took all of them?
Yeah, she stayed in the house and I moved out.
Okay. And did you ever try to reach out to the kids, drop by the home, or
No.
was there?
I honored the no separation boundary that we agreed to.
So, what was your separation?
Contact boundary, excuse me.
Did you have a no contact order in place?
Order? No, this was between my wife and I.
So, what did Ruby ask of you when you separated?
See, the question is always, what can we learn from this? If you're a guy, okay, and some freaking woman, anyone, moves into your house, the house you have with your wife and the 6 kids you've had, it's your family, okay? And some other person is moving in and saying, you have a porn problem. You get out of here. You sleep on the couch. You bad, bad man. He's not like sleeping on the couch feeling all ashamed. That's weird, okay? And then he eventually moves out because he's just going to honor that his wife asked him to, you know? Because they had big disagreements about the YouTube channel as well at the time of what she wanted to post and what he, you know, all kinds of things. It's just, should we carry on? Oh, and also because he didn't want to carry on because she wanted to hand it over, all control, everything to Jodi. And he's like, no, you can't just hand over our family channel to Jodi. What are you thinking? Big disagreement. She's like, get out. No. So stand up for your family. No matter what. It doesn't matter if you're male, female, whoever you are. Stand up for your family. You can't just let someone come in there and take it from you. Like, what the hell is that? Which is why I say it's a red flag. Because, okay, well then, what kind of porn are we talking about? Why are you leaving? Where'd you go? Why are you not allowed to see your kids? It's a little bit odd. I worry about it, and I'm just like, okay, don't just like bend over backwards for someone who's literally going to steal your family and then torture and abuse your children. No, don't do that.
What did she ask of me?
Did she ask you not to contact the kids?
Ruby invited me to leave the home while I thought about the choices that I've made in my life and the way that I've treated her.
Okay.
And so I left.
And how long had you and Ruby been married before?
We were married in 2000.
So about 22 years?
When we separated, we were going on 22 years. Yes.
Okay. And during your marriage, how was disciplining your kids? How would you discipline your kids?
I'm not going to answer that question.
Okay, that's fine.
Have you been since separated or since they lived here in this?
Why don't you want to answer the question? How did you discipline your children? I'm not going to answer that. I mean, an answer could be like any dad would. Boundaries. Why are you saying I'm not going to answer that? Well, maybe it's a very long answer. But I just, oh man. And remember, I'm not trying to like go for Kevin. Again, we protect victims and their families here. At this point, victims, because they're children and they were horribly abused. So now we've got to look at the parents. Who's accountable here? Obviously already Ruby Franke. She's in jail, in prison. Sentenced to 4 to 30 years. Up to 30 years. But it could be as low as 4. I'm just saying. I'm just letting you all know. Okay, Ruby Franke held accountable. Jodi Hildebrandt held accountable. But how can a dad just walk away from all his kids and be like, I don't know. There wasn't even a protective order, nothing. Just like, oh, I'm just going to leave. And stay where? And do what? Where are you going? Why don't you know where your kids are? Why aren't they calling you for help? What is going on here? Okay, so we have to ask the hard questions sometimes.
City of Ivans, have you communicated with your wife regarding like discipline with your kids or their care or their physical well-being?
No.
So is she doing this on her own and just telling you how your kids are?
She's not telling me anything about the kids.
Who's this female Jodi that your wife lives with? Do you know a female named Jodi?
She is a therapist and a life coach, I know. And she's...
Do you respect her?
Do I respect her? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think she's a very honest, truthful person, yes.
Okay. You place value on Jodi?
I don't know what that means.
Like, do you value what she says and how she treats? Is your wife a client of hers? Is your wife a partner of hers? Is your wife a roommate with her? Your kids are living in her house is what I'm trying to say.
I'm not aware of that, but I know that they've been in business for the last year filming.
Who's they?
Ruby and Jodi. They film podcasts, and so every week a podcast goes up and I listen to it.
What's the name of it?
The police officer like, okay. So Connections with an X, he's going to talk about that. But his whole, I don't know what to call it, punishment phase when he was kicked out of his own home was to work out and just listen to Connections. Just listen to Jodi and Ruby and everything they're saying What are those three? There's three principles. Wait, I'm going to have to flip through my pages while we listen to this and find it. That Jodi was teaching everyone. Be like impeccably honest and resilient icon. I'll get them for you now and then we'll go over that because like, whoa, he was just being indoctrinated from afar. But isn't that a concern when you are out of the house? You're not kicked out of the house, okay? You're away from your kids. And you're just listening to all the stuff. Isn't any of it a concern for you? That the kids are going to have to listen to that too and be indoctrinated that way too and eventually be abused? Things escalated. Oh my goodness.
Connections with an X.
Like C-O-N...
C-O-N-N-E-X-I-O-N-S. Yeah.
And then, like, do you support them in that role and doing that and having...
Do I support them in the business?
Yeah, like, do you support them and think that what they're doing is a good thing, or...
Yeah, I support their business efforts. I think it's a good thing.
Are you involved with their business efforts, or...?
No.
Okay. So just Ruby and Jodi? No
In
Kevin?
the business?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And were you involved in the 8 passengers account with your family?
Yes. I was in the videos, and if that's what you mean.
I briefly learned about this 2 hours ago.
So, did Ruby more so do the videos for the family?
Mm-hmm.
And how long did you guys do that for?
She started.
Okay, I'm still looking for all these principles that Jodi taught everyone. At one point, Ruby actually said on a video, I love principles more than my child. Like, oh, wow. The things that Ruby put on video, imagine what's happening behind closed doors when the camera's not on. That is a huge concern. Okay, so I can see there's a lot of people in chat being like, we got to listen to the second interview. We got to listen. Yes, there's a second interview. It's audio only. So you know what? Right after this, we'll listen to it. I wanted to do it maybe tomorrow so we could like first watch this and then we'll just do it. We'll listen to it right after this. So if that's what you're up for, you're going to stay here with us. Please like and share if you like that idea. Let's keep going.
The channel in 2015, and as far as I'm aware, from the time I left, the last video she uploaded was towards the end of 2021.
Okay.
And I'm not aware of anything she's done since our separation. I don't visit the passengers anymore.
Chapter of your life that's gone.
It's a past chapter, yeah.
So how do you and Ruby communicate? Just through text, phone call?
Through text, and if there's anything considered an emergency, we agreed that we would communicate through a phone call.
Okay. And do you know her phone number off the top of your head?
The top of my head? No.
Okay. No worries. So, how often would you guys communicate while she was down here?
Well, I don't know how often or long she was down here. We've communicated maybe 4 times in 2023 since January.
So are you aware of how she disciplines the kids or how she handles
No.
the kids with behavioral issues or anything like that?
No.
So you're
So no idea. After listening to all of her lessons, all of her teaching, no idea how she would discipline the kids, right? Maybe you really didn't know, but damn, you better know. If a stranger is going to move into your home or be that close to your family and be that near to your kids, I think there we go. We're finally finding the lesson. Look harder at them. Like, who the heck are they? And why do they want access to your entire family and kids? Why are they moving in? What's going on? Why are they sleeping over? Tarina said it is very reminiscent of the FLDS cases that I've read about, especially when they were looking for land to buy. This is what they do when they isolate people. Exactly. I'm just going to pause here and there because there's so much to discuss in this case. When things like this come up, I got to remind you. So, apparently, Ruby Franke, she had written in one of her journal entries that they're going to drop the kids off in the desert like hot potatoes, meaning they were looking at another property to buy that would be even more isolated than Jodi's house or their own home. Like looking into properties to buy, drop them off like hot potatoes in the desert and let them suffer in the blazing sun where they can punish them without any onlookers, basically. That is so scary.
Unaware of how she does that.
Yes.
Okay. Are you aware of the physical condition of your children?
No. No. I've chosen to trust my wife with the children. That was part of the agreement of our separation.
Is that you allow her to physically provide for the needs of the child? You're just removed from that? I mean, you pay support? I know this is personal questions, but...
No, yes, my job is to financially provide for them.
I was trying to figure out, like, how much of a role do you play in the caretaking of specifically, of those two kids?
I pay the bills.
Okay.
With my job, I provide the money, goes into a shared bank account, and that's my only involvement.
Okay. There's a whole bunch of things I want to talk to you about, but I still can't get over the fact that someone notified you to come here to pick up your kids. My guess is, was that Jodi?
I'm not going to answer that question.
Okay.
All I'll say is,
well,
someone
you said you
notified
trusted her. You said that you think she's not necessarily. I asked you if you placed value on her, but you obviously.
She is an honest. I know her to be an honest and a trustworthy individual.
I'm sorry, sir, but you are blind. I know at this point people say, he doesn't know. I've made my rant. He was part of the discipline before Jodi even entered their life. Okay? And he, at the end of the day, allowed Jodi to move in, get in his wife's bed, and kick him out. At some point, you got to put your kids before you, and whatever it is you're going through, you are responsible for your kids, man. You got to look out for them. So, yes, you are right, Sojourners. It is to be humble, impeccably honest, and rigorously responsible. Those are the principles that Jodi Hildebrandt teaches. To be humble, impeccably honest. Impeccably. Oh, wow. And rigorously responsible. All right.
And so, yeah, I trust her. And I received a communication that and so I left immediately from my job and drove down here. That's all I know. I've come to pick up my kids and to take them home with me.
Is there custodial paperwork that says that you're like a... There's no custodial paperwork denying you of rights, correct?
There's no custodial paperwork at all.
Period. So the kids are yours.
They are mine.
Okay.
Yes. This wasn't just a verbal agreement between my wife and I.
And how do I say this? He says that his role is to pay the bills, right? That's the agreement. He's out. It's a separation now. Boundary separation. Okay. Don't know where he's staying. But it's apparently because we've got to work through some porn issues, is what he said, which is something that Jodi did a lot. She did it to all her clients. Always the men have got addiction issues. Well, actually anyone. Her niece said that when she was a teenager, she wormed her way into their home and the parents left so that she could be disciplined. And even there, she just said, you are addicted to masturbating. She wasn't allowed to use tampons because she said she's trying to basically masturbate with him. Like, oh my word, Jodi, whoa, one sick lady. Anyway, so now Kevin is kicked out the house because of whatever porn issues that she's told all her clients they have, but most of them say, but I don't have it. Whereas this guy says, okay, yeah, you're right, I do have it, and he leaves. Oh dear. But when he says he pays the bills, not really, is what I just want to clarify. Of course, the YouTube channel at that point was paying all the bills. Even when it stopped, they say we lost 90% of our income. But all the videos were still up and stuff, you know what I mean? So I don't know. I just feel like at that point, Ruby herself said she made millions of dollars. It was a multi-million-dollar business. Like, oh my goodness. And they had many sponsors that paid crap tons of money. So they said when they lost their sponsorships, they lost 90% of the income. So it's not just the YouTube channel getting demonetized. It's the sponsors. That's what they're talking about when they say multi-million-dollar business and all of this. Like, well, she already had her house. And, wow, they were living in Jodi's house as well. As in Ruby back and forth, but also leaving her kids there. You know what else is weird that I just have to tell you quickly? Jodi's house, Ruby's house, which is actually Ruby and Frankie's house, but I'm sorry, Kevin's house. Ruby, Frankie, and Kevin. You know what's weird? Is when Ruby, she would go up and down to Jodi's house, but then leave her kids alone at home, especially the two youngest ones, for hours, sometimes days. That sounds pretty scary when you start looking into that. Like, what? And then eventually she would drop her kids off there and go home. So it's so weird how she separated that she had to either be alone with Jodi or the kids had to be alone with Jodi. It's very odd, right? I'm just speculating because of that back and forth. And then sometimes the kids are alone while Ruby's visiting, or the kids are visiting for a long time and being punished, and Ruby's up and down. Okay.
When we separated last year.
What questions do you have?
Oh, I want to know what's going on and why I was asked to come down and pick up my two kids.
Well,
And a lot of that kind of hinges on who asks you, because if we had been the one, like, I'm not going to say you fib, but I'm confident a cop didn't call you because we wouldn't have wanted you down here at this point in our investigation. So, having said that, I think it's time we be honest with you, right?
Sure. No, and I didn't lie. Sure, someone contacted me, but I don't want to say without
from your office, but okay.
Well, I don't recall saying someone from my office.
Our office.
No.
someone, yeah, so we don't know who called you. So if we knew who called you, then we could help you.
It would make more sense.
But
Well, I don't know the legal ramifications of implicating individuals who contacted me. And so without a lawyer here, I don't want to answer that question.
that's okay. But you want to know specifics of the case, which we can't share right now because it's under investigation. So
I see.
yeah, so we would like to ask questions about where you found out, but we'll respect that if you don't want to share that information. But I am curious, when you guys had the previous 8 Passengers YouTube channel, you guys got a lot of heat for neglect and child abuse. A lot of people commented those things on there. Why were they commenting those things?
That's a good question. We had a son who was acting out in very selfish behavior.
Just Chad or a different
Yes, this was Chad.
Okay, so they're saying the elder son's name, who is an adult. Of course, all the names are known. They're out there from the 8 Passengers. What was 8 Passengers, Oskay? I hope you'll catch up. I can't explain it all again now. We went over it yesterday as well. 8 Passengers was a YouTube channel. It was their YouTube channel, right? That was the business. So, I've lost my train of thought. Okay, they're saying Chad. You see, but he says he was acting in very selfish ways. So you could hear he's definitely, what many are saying in the chat, brainwashed. He's definitely influenced by Jodi's teachings. You know, the foundation would have been the church's teachings, and then Jodi just, you know, creatively made her own thing out of it. As we saw with Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow Daybell, it's very similar to that case. You know, where there's many people influenced by it, affected by it, coercively controlled by it. He was apparently in fear when he was kicked out and had to prove himself to Jodi. He had to jump through hoops to prove himself and to Jodi and to Ruby so that he could come back. And his hope was that he could, for a few months, prove himself and then come back and they could just welcome him back with open arms. But that's where I'm like, whoa, just the lesson for us. It's not to attack him. The lesson is, don't ever let someone steal your family, like right before your very eyes. Right? That's the whole point of us talking about all these kinds of topics, because hopefully it can help someone not go through this. You just don't know, especially what they're going to do to your kids. I mean, think of Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow Daybell. Look what happened to those kids. Oh my goodness, what a terrible, terrible case. And here, this could have easily been murder. It was, in my mind, very close to attempted murder. If they had carried on like that, they probably would have died. From starvation, from abuse, from those injuries, you know? It was like rotting flesh at that point, just about. It was open wounds, and it's terrible. I don't know if you've seen those pictures, but oh man. So yeah, just be very careful.
And none of this is strange or odd. You could get on YouTube and find out all sorts of stuff from this.
It's like a double-edged sword.
Whereas the question is, what do you believe, right? There was even an article written in Newsweek magazine in 2020 on it, was it Newsweek? No, Business Insider, where we were interviewed, and we were pretty straightforward, and we talked about it, and we shared our piece in that. Basically, it boils down to he was being very cruel and mean to his siblings that he shared a room with, and so we removed him from the room. And we said, you can sleep anywhere you want. Sleep on the couch, sleep on the pull-out bed, sleep on the floor for all we care, but you're not sleeping in that room with your brother.
It's completely disproportionate punishment for children as well, let alone for anyone, but for children. He pulled a prank on one of his brothers, and they're like, that's it, you lose the right to your bedroom. You're done. And he just said, sleep on the floor for all we care. Not great. No. That's disproportionate punishment. And as they said in the documents, religious extremism, which could lead to child abuse. Careful with that, right? Scorpion says, how long were R&E going through that torture at Jodi's? Was it the entire year? Did it work up to that? I'm curious. I'm not exactly sure how long. I just know that the little boy said that he hadn't seen his sister in about a month, but yet they were in the same house, So, yeah, I wouldn't really doubt if he was in that panic room type of place we saw, somewhere near there, because that's where they found the rope and the handcuffs and things like that. And he'd apparently escaped through a window. But I don't know exactly how long they were there. And I don't know if they were taken back and forth or just dropped off there, for how long. I don't know. And what was Ruby doing back home at that time? Because she would go back and forth. It's about a 4-hour drive between the two properties. But 2 days before, she filmed a YouTube video with Jodi in that house. Knowing, her children are there, being punished by Jodi, clearly. So she was in support of it. She knew it. Horrible. Because at that point, they believed, these... And you know what? You know what bothers me? Is the backstory. The YouTube channel. Those videos. If you look at some of those that are still up out there, right, that people have also made commentary on, it's like Ruby was out to get those two younger ones from the beginning. For instance, she said that at some point, I can't even remember, it's something so small and stupid, the two younger ones did something where she said, this year for Christmas, we're going to give them the gift of love, the gift of boundaries, the gift of truth, while the other 4 got gifts. She was always punishing those 2 little ones. She left the 2 little ones at home alone while she went to visit Jodi, sometimes for 5 days at a time, is what the eldest says. And they know that from the car not being parked there and things like that, but I'm like, whoa. So to think that Ruby, and I mean, Kevin was there at the time, they were so hard on those 2 youngest ones. Look what happened later. Look what happened, because they thought, no, they've got demons and kids are full of evil and we can't discipline these. And it's like the discipline for each additional child they had got actually worse and worse and worse, which is, all of them were abused, by the way. The 2 teens that were found at the other lady's house, Pam's house, they were apparently being kicked and starved and made to do manual labor and all sorts of things. The 2 eldest, who were then adults, left. They went to college. The one went to stay at the dorms, I guess is what you call it. The male, not sure exactly where he went, but they said he left and went to stay with somebody else. So, it just got so much worse. It didn't stay as bad as it was. Things got worse and worse and worse. And they absolutely punished those 2 little kids. They punished everyone, though. Don't get it wrong.
He chose to sleep on a beanbag. So 9 months later, he had made a lot of changes in his life. And he was ready to, and we had moved by that time. And so we had a new house, and he was ready to move into his own bedroom. Made a video about it. And, In the video, he mentioned something to the effect of, I've been sleeping for 9 months on a beanbag. And that is what all the uproar was about.
So that's his fault, isn't it? I'm just saying, there's patterns here where they blame the kids for what happened to them. You know, Ruby at a hearing, before she was sentenced, immediately in front of a room of strangers just came out and said, well, one of our boys was watching porn since he was 3, and yeah, he's addicted to it, and he's also abused other kids, like 20 other people in our neighborhood. I mean, that had no context. It was just to blame her kid for something. And here as well, the story is not quite like that. And he was in the video, okay? As in, Kevin was there. This was way before Jodi days. This was 2015 to 2021. Last video, I think, was posted in 2022. Jodi wasn't quite in the picture yet, you know? So the discipline, the beanbag and all of that, that was the parents, as in Kevin and Ruby, okay? I think he was around, and Monica asked how old was he when he was made to sleep on the beanbag. I think he was around 15 or 16. I don't know, I can't remember his exact age, but somewhere around there.
What did you guys do to help, like, with his behavioral issues? Is that something you and Ruby talked about together? And then did you help him discover yourself and fix behavioral issues and things like that? Is that something you and Ruby sought out to help correct, like, some of the things?
Yes, and
okay.
And I supported it, and so together we held boundaries for our son to support his choosing honest and responsible choices. And when he chose honest and responsible choices consistently is when he began to get his privileges back. And that was
great parenting, right?
Well, that was the uproar, right?
Yeah.
And so, but yes, through 2000, contact with him because I'm honoring the most content.
Sorry for the jump cuts. It's when there's silent portions. There's something there they've redacted they don't want us to hear. Austin says the audio recordings, which we are going to listen to after this, of Kevin coming up next, are very eye-opening to how disturbed Jodi is. Ruby is a liar. Kevin is an enabler. That's another word I was looking for. Enabler. He's enabling a lot of this as well. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't be too polite now. Right? If people are enabling, or don't enable this. See the red flags if you can, right? So Cecilia said right there, he's saying that in the appropriate, that the appropriate punishment worked, so it was good. Yeah, he agrees with the punishment, you know?
That separation boundary with that I agreed to with my wife, but I understand that he's 18, living on his own somewhere in Provo and working and supporting himself.
What other kids went down to visit Jodi?
What other kids?
Yeah, did you send any of the other kids down to spend time with Jodi?
Down to spend time with Jodi. They would meet on Zoom.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, we were in Springfield. Well, even in 2019, she would meet with them.
So when did Ruby and Jodi, to your knowledge, like, decide to collaborate, come together and mesh life? Because that's what's happened.
Well, they decided to start a business.
Stand by. So when the YouTube channel basically failed, sponsors pulled out, then they decided to start a business. Ruby, Jodi, and everything went wrong from there. Because of course that meant that Jodi was going to start being in control of just really everything. Also, let me just give you some examples quickly of the abuse the children suffered just based on the YouTube videos before Jodi was even in the picture, okay? Also, Lieutenant Peter Pronzo, Harlem Raider says, sadly, these people hid under the umbrella of some organized religions, but lost their moral compass and crossed into criminal activity. Maybe for the sake of money. Yes, very well said. So, listen to some of the abuse that the children suffered, right? One of the daughters, who's now an adult, okay, and she's the one that called CPS and the police a few times to, you know, be like, hello, can you look into this? But they just never answered the door. Ruby, Kevin, they didn't answer the door. They couldn't get a search warrant. They didn't have enough evidence. And so nothing really happened from it. Also, here's another one. Ruby said that no, she's going to homeschool the two youngest kids, but she didn't. The neighbors actually called in to CPS multiple times because they're like, these kids are just wandering around. Especially the little girl. She's just wandering around like aimlessly for hours, unsupervised. Neighbors were concerned. So really the whole see something, say something, and people were saying things. They're like, I don't know what's going on here, but the kids are just like walking around and not really being homeschooled. Man, they really punished those two. Shame, man. And the others, but I don't know why. The punishment was so severe on the younger two. Deborah said, do you know if 4 kids are together? I don't know exactly, but they say they're with DCYF, apparently. So this one time when the eldest daughter, her vision, she was like losing her vision and she was worried about something with the health. And so she wanted to go to the emergency room, you know, and the family, as in Kevin and Ruby, agreed, yeah, we need to take it to the emergency room. So what did Jodi do? Oh, not Jodi. What did Ruby do? She filmed it. She filmed herself stalling in the bathroom. She was putting on her makeup. She was putting on her lip gloss. She was going to look her best to go to this emergency room, okay? But she said, I've been here for an hour now. I'm just like stalling. Like I don't really want to go right now. So her daughter is suffering and needs medical attention. And she's like, I first need to do my makeup and then I'm going to clean the bathroom. I'm just going to stall for as long as possible, okay? That's one of them. The eldest son, it was excellent. He had talent in football, okay? So what Ruby decided was, oh, that's something that he's passionate about, that he's good at, that he seems to be responsible at, that he works hard at, but schoolwork, not so much. So you know what we're going to do? Take away the football. Apparently, he was so good, he had potential to get a full football scholarship, and she took that away from him, and that obviously includes Kevin as well, because he's the dad. He was right there, filming all these videos with her. Rob says, thank you for covering this case. Gee, love your commentary. Oh, thank you so much, Rob. Guys, we're going to be here for a while tonight. This is like a full trial day, okay? So buckle up because we're here for a while because I'm chipping in as well and we're now analyzing all of this. So another one would be that Ruby didn't want to buy the kids clothes because the eldest said, I have to go to work. I have to work at CVS or Walmart. He didn't say Walmart. He's just like, I have to go and work somewhere because I have to earn money because my mom won't buy me clothes. But guess who's the money makers of the channel? It's the children. Everybody agrees that, you know, from all the commentary I've heard, if Kevin and Ruby started a channel just with the two of them, it'll be pretty dull. Not all that interesting. You got to include the kids to make it fun. You got to exploit them, right? Show, ooh, this one's got acne and she's embarrassed about it. How do you feel? Show the one like wanting to shave her legs and telling the world about it. You know? Talking about all sorts of things that should have been private conversations. And many times the kids are like, Mom, can you turn off the camera? And she's like, no, we're not going to do that, silly type of thing. So, didn't want to buy the kids clothes. Withheld food from them. But then she's making like multi-million-dollar deals and all kinds of things. She's got this multi-million-dollar business. She's just like keeping for herself. This is insane. Oh my goodness. I've got a whole list like this of all the abuse, right? So I won't go through all of them because there's too many actually. Let's pick one more. Maybe we'll pick 2 more. One of the toddlers, when they were still a toddler, was crying in the morning, upset about something, and Ruby said on a video, oh, if she keeps crying, or if they keep crying, I'm just not going to give them breakfast. Like, wow, okay, yeah. Amanda's like, the bra shopping was the worst, right? And then, here's another one. She wanted, especially the eldest son, to learn the value of items, but all of them. She had this whole video where she's like, you're going to learn the value of items now. So she had a whole bag full of their stuff, and they had to pay money. They had to pay her money to be able to get it back. Where the kid's going to get money, though? So in this bag included was the eldest homework that he needed to hand in the next day, okay? And she said, no, you have to pay me money to be able to get it. Otherwise, it's on you. So he would have had to go to school the next day and just say, well, I did my homework, but my mom doesn't want to give it back to me. Oh, my word. And it goes on and on. As I could say, I could list another 30 things. And that was before Jodi even really entered the scene. Anyway, so let's hear how he explains how Jodi entered the scene.
In 2021.
So while you and Ruby were together?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but there were, at that period it was pretty nebulous. I don't know
What's that word mean?
It was just a lot of talk, and there weren't like solid plans. It was, let's start by doing podcasts together, and then that's all I know. I know that they published a book together recently. You can find it on Amazon. It's not a secret.
Was business thriving? Like life was good between those two?
Well, not that I was aware.
Well, at some point, and again, I'm not digging into your life, but I'm trying to understand this. At some point,
We took,
they kick you out.
when you talk about a business, thriving in terms of business and money, when we stopped 8 passengers in YouTube, we lost 90% of our income. So to say that business was thriving, in my perspective, no.
Got it.
I don't think it ever was after that.
Was that part of your guys' reason for separation after you guys ended 8 passengers?
Was that part of the reason? The reasons are because of ways that I treated my wife, and some of my own addictions that I was working through and seeking help on with pornography.
Thank you for sharing that.
And I've made some wonderful progress.
Like, is that something you came to the realization that you needed help and weren't doing things right, or is that something that like Jodi helped you guys recognize that maybe Ruby needed more? I'm trying to understand her involvement in your guys' life. She's my focus, just to be honest.
I understand, and I can perceive that. Jodi and Ruby have a close relationship, and Jodi saw the need for me to get help,
And Jodi saw the need for many men that she counseled, much marriage counseling that she did every time. The man has a problem with pornography, he's addicted, even if they're not. I just wish they would clarify a little bit, you know what I mean? Because, like, that the police would ask, like, what? Like, I don't know how to say it, but can you check his phone or something just to make sure? What type are we talking about? Because all the other clients denied it. They're just like, I don't have an addiction. And you know what Jodi did? One of her clients was, they had marriage counseling or couples counseling, whatever, with Jodi. And Jodi would then share personal information with the church elders, leaders, the bishops, the conduct board or whatever it was called, which was very embarrassing for him and obviously a violation of trust, and it was completely unethical and probably illegal, right? Well, when he found out, oh my word, she's sharing things that I'm saying in therapy with all these people, so they're like whistleblowers now, then she extorted him. She said, if you, like, he wanted to quit therapy, like, this is not for me, I'm done, and it was something like $2,000 a month. And she threatened him, blackmailed him, and said, if you don't keep coming to therapy, allegedly, this is what he said. That was one of his stories. This client says, if he wasn't going to continue therapy and keep paying her, she's going to tell people all about the information that he shared. See, that is also how she made her money. She apparently made about $30,000 a month just from her, some of her counseling. She had multiple levels and layers of counseling and things that she was doing with her connections, business and brand and all of that. But at least $30,000 a month was being made from that. S. Watkins says, thank you for covering this disturbing case. The dad should have been charged with something. He failed his children. I'm not comfy with the prison sentences on these monsters. Right? I still say, what if it's 4 years? That's scary. That's a very scary thought. Okay. So, part of the plea agreement as well for Ruby and Jodi to plead guilty to 4 out of the 6 charges and to have those types of sentences. For Ruby, the prosecutor said that when it comes to the parole board, You know, normally they would be able to write letters or say, we don't recommend that this one gets released. Part of the deal was that they can't do that in this case. That's part of that new 2020 documentary. That's what they said on there. I was like so shocked, like, oh my word. So it's just going to be like everybody watching to see what the parole board does, which I hope doesn't go like Kayla Montgomery.
Frankly, I agree. The space has been exactly what I need to face, my own addictions and receive the support and help that I've needed. And so this space has been very, very good for me.
So,
But the space also includes space from his children. You know what I mean? Just worry about it.
when you stated that you and Ruby had this no contact that you guys just verbally agreed upon, was that an idea given by Jodi that she recommended you guys have that space and not contact one another?
I'm not aware of that. The invitation for me to leave and take space was from my wife.
Okay.
But that was while Jodi and Ruby were friends and collaborating and doing podcasts and
Sure.
Well, you're the custodial parent of these children. I don't see why we can't explain to you why we're involved. So I don't recall the exact time, but sometime before 11 o'clock today, we received a phone call from 911 on our dispatch that a 12 to 13-year-old boy was knocking on doors in a neighborhood asking for food and water, that he was severely emaciated, that he had
What does emaciated mean?
skinny, scrawny, malnutrition, not enough food, not
Is it just me, or is it a surprise that he doesn't know what that word means? It makes me feel like he's playing dumb. This guy is a professor of engineering, civil engineering. He's well educated. He's a grown-ass man. I don't know. Maybe he just doesn't know the word. But he just said a word earlier. What was it? Sorry about nebulous. Some word that the cops were like, what does that mean? And he explained all of that very well. He's very articulate. So to now be like, what is emaciated? What? Emaciated? I mean, are you sure you don't know that word, sir? Is that a way to like distance yourself from what they're saying now? I don't know. Okay.
enough water to sustain life. So
I'm sorry, what?
he had duct tape on his extremities, on his hands, on his ankles, and those were covering rope burns that were used to tie him down. Take a second and think about what I just said. That's the condition of your son. Given that information, your son was taken to the hospital. A warrant has been applied and granted by the Department of Child and Family Services to remove from your wife's care. So no one right now is going to have access to these two children based on their physical condition. Do you understand that?
I understand.
Would you condone that behavior?
Would I condone that behavior?
That's my job. My job is to find out your knowledge of the treatment of these
Based on your
precious
description,
children.
no. But again, I don't know the details or I don't know what's going on, but as you described that.
Based on the details that the police just shared, no, he wouldn't condone that behavior. But give me some more details and then maybe? Is that what it means? Like, no, man. You know? And as I say, it's after years of being on camera and we've seen that he's very much part of the boot camp mindset, the tough love for the kids, you know, which is just abuse, really. It's good to teach kids boundaries and to actually be parents, but this has gone way over that line, in my opinion. Clearly also in the opinion of CPS, they were called, well, okay, not CPS, the neighbors who called CPS multiple times. The police tried to get there. They just didn't have a search warrant. They couldn't, if they didn't open the door, and why didn't you open the door? If the police or CPS is there, why don't you open the door? In fact, one time they did open the door And Ruby says, of course, remember, if Adam Montgomery can pull off multiple interviews to the point where CPS writes down happy family, right? If you watch the Adam Montgomery trial with me, you know what I'm talking about. Well, of course, then Ruby Franke and maybe this husband can pull it off. Because one time, Ruby apparently says, oh yeah, they came over and you know what? They said my parenting style was so good. They're inspired by it. They're going to go home and teach their kids the same way. Like, no. Highly doubt that. But then again, who knows?
That sounds
Horrible. Disgusting. No human being should be treated like that.
yeah, okay.
That's my thoughts. But again, we might be different on that. We're going to let you sit here for a second, okay? We're going to go out and talk. I'm not saying you're still not free to go. Are you under arrest? Absolutely not. We just have lots of questions that we need to figure out. Lots. Okay?
Okay, because...
Your children are under medical care right now.
And what does that mean?
And it means that you don't have access to them. My understanding is that they are... What is that?
They're in the custody of DCFS.
And they will be for the next 7
There's a medical hold on them right now. So for at least the next 72 hours, based on our understanding.
At least the next 70.
During observation, they're being watched.
DCFS is going to provide you that information and they can better answer your questions along those lines. That's handled through them. Okay? So we'll be back.
So I want you to think about some things though.
I don't know.
Listen to me. Listen to me.
Little bit of silence.
I want you to think about that for a minute. So I have no idea where they're at.
Well, I don't either. But,
Okay, we're gonna hop out here. We'll be back in a minute, okay? That's still recording audio and video, okay? So if you would, don't make any phone calls.
sure.
No crying. Just saying. No utter disbelief that his son and daughter were found like that. The two youngest, aged 12 and 9.
What's going to happen to my wife? I love my wife.
I don't know.
I am no body language expert, but as you guys know, we all like to assess things. Statements, body language, and even that. What's going to happen with my wife? I love my wife. The way he says it, I mean, I know they just told him about the two kids being in under like medical supervision with DCYF, but that's what he's most worried about. Is Ruby. What about all the kids? Where are the other two? I don't know. Wow. Yeah, that doesn't sound right. I need to know more details, basically. But what's going to happen to my wife? Now we're seeing some emotion. Shame, man. What about those kids? His kids.
I'm being honest with you. I don't know. Haven't had anything to do with
I
it.
don't know if those charges against my wife.
Possibly. I think given the circumstances, that's highly appropriate, but again, I don't know your wife. I was hoping to gain some insight from you, but I don't necessarily know that that's something you wanted to,
I trust her.
a road you wanted to travel down with me, so.
And not without legal representation.
Yeah, no,
You trust her, but you've literally found out that her and Jodi have been abusing your two youngest so much that you can't have access to them, and he still doesn't, which is great, I think, in my opinion, right now. From what I've read, he's fighting for, but doesn't have yet. That's what I've read. If I'm wrong, please let me know, okay, in the comments. But up to this point, all the research that it says they're still with DCYF, and I'm like, whoa, That is so hectic. And he's just like, I trust her. How can you trust her after this? Trust was just broken in pieces. If you really didn't know anything. Dude, read the room. Read the room, Kevin. Trust is shattered right now. Think about what they just said. How your son escaped and ran around in socks with no shoes in the scorching heat. Emaciated. Injury so bad, he's going to have medical attention for quite some time. In a hospital. Not like where, which hospital, where do I go? No, where's my wife? I love her and I trust her. Don't. How about don't? Oh my word.
I get it.
But I love that wife and I trust my wife. And so, I mean, this feels like getting run over by a steam truck while you're sharing with me today.
Yeah. I can tell you're caught off guard.
I thought I was just coming here to pick up my kids, and for what, I don't know what or why, but... And I was planning on taking them back with me, and just...
I mean, I'd love to have a candid conversation with you, I just don't know how it's going to be received by you. I don't know you, but I can tell you my perception of how this happened.
Well... I'm
Whether you value
interested
that or not, it's...
Look, I'm interested in facts, but again, at the same time...
I'm just going to pause here. Be Kind and Love says, G, in his second interview, he says he goes up to get... Yeah, he needs to go pick up the kid. I know. We're going to listen to it together right after this. But that's the second interview, not even on the same day. Later date. This is his time now. This is the moment that he supposedly just found out. Oh my word, what happened? They escaped from where? There's no question of what were they doing there. Why were they there? Why are they emaciated? What do you mean, duct tape? There's none of that. There's none of that, right? Like, put yourself in the kids' shoes, okay? Make sure you defend the kids in the situation. They're the victims. If this guy is if he's a victim of coercive control, or which otherwise known as brainwashing, or, is delusional, or whatever it is, okay. That's one layer of it. But think of what happened to those kids, and he was part of it for a long time. Oh man, I feel so protective of them. I feel so bad for them. The trauma, how are they ever going to overcome that? It's terrible. Hours and hours of neglect, isolation, starvation, being tied up. And you know what? Ruby and them say, but Ruby and Jodi are saying, wait, but we just tied them up. So they did it to themselves because they moved around, they being the little boy. I don't know if the little girl was tied up in the same way. I think he was, because he tried to escape once before. He's the hero in the story. That little boy, oh my word. 12 years old, escaping again. When he's already paid the price. Was punished to the max for escaping the first time. But he tried again because he wants to save his life and save his sister's life and say, I need you to take me to the police station. He's the hero in the story. I don't even see any of that vibe or energy from this guy. I just don't. That little boy protected his sister more than anyone.
I'm interested in all the facts.
But you understand our facts. Our facts are that you have a child that is emaciated, malnutrition, and has marks. I didn't spend any time with her. Sergeant Tobler did.
Did any of you spend time with her?
He didn't spend
I
time
have not.
We haven't seen her yet today.
She was requested to go to the hospital along with Russell, based on their condition.
Folks, I don't know what to do. Like, I want to... You realize that I have a picture of my family on my wall. And I look at it every day. And I work every day. So I can get back to my family and save my family. And everything you're sharing to me just sounds like a made-up story. Like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, it sounds like a horror movie.
It is a horror movie. It really is, right? But nobody forced him to leave. Ruby asked him to leave after Jodi moved in. Also, I have questions said earlier. Jodi was 100% in the picture for the beanbag thing. She was Chad's therapist. Okay, good point. She was already, I think at that point she was already, we'll have to make a detailed timeline. We're in a study group now with this case. I think you're right. I have questions. I think Jodi was his therapist. The son. So the influence was already there, but how terrible. How terrible. Oh my goodness, yeah. Pernille says, it was Kevin. Absolute horror.
And I get you're all doing your jobs. I get it. I understand. And this is my life. I just want my kids. I just want my kids. I just want my family. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why these things that you described happen. I don't know. It's almost like I want to say, I'm sorry, you must have somebody else. Because it's like, am I in the right conference room here? No. That's what I feel like. It's real. You know, I'm having a hard time accepting this and dealing with this. I mean, you're telling me that you're taking my kids from me. We need.
Again, the jump cut was because they just muted from there. So I don't know if he said all the kids' names or what. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it is a lot to process. You know, if one were to give him full benefit of the doubt, it is a lot to process. Oh man. You know, I've seen how devastating it can be when people rely on God or Jesus to protect them and their family, and they don't have any protective instincts anymore. You know what I mean? They're just like, okay, it's fine. Like, God will protect our family. Jesus is there always, but you are there to protect your family. You know? That's delusional. You are the protector on this earth for those kids, and your wife. You know, so yeah, and I mean, many people, it's a long process to get into this like culty type mindset, right? It's a long process. And for him, it's many years. He grew up with the faith and the foundation already, and then Jodi entered the room. And as I say, it's like Chad Daybell entering the room. Like, oh, here comes a whole different spin on things. Like, what is going on here? Older, wiser says he only cares about Ruby, and he's thinking he trusts his wife, meaning if the kids were emaciated and tied up, then the kids deserved it for some reason. Oh, that's such a bad one, right? Oh my word, that is a scary thought that you said that's how his mind works. That is scary. Okay, we're almost done with this interview, then we're going to listen to the second one.
To transfer the titles of the car to my name, you know, or we're going to cancel these credit cards and stuff like that. So just stuff related to the finances really is our only communications over the past year.
Sure.
We've had zero communications regarding the kids.
Okay.
I've had no reason to believe or think that there was anything going on. For all intents and purposes, I woke up this morning looking at the picture of my family and making my commitment today, as I do every day, that I'm going to live an honest, a virtuous, and a responsible life today. And what you're sharing with me just feels like a sucker punch.
Just imagine. Brianna, do you have questions?
So,
Okay.
If I still have a family,
Yeah.
and I just I don't know what my plan. My plan is to go to God
Sure.
and to figure this out.
Right.
And,
As someone said, let me just quickly find it. Karen said, not one word about thank you for saving my kids. That's true as well. Oh my.
I am just heartbroken what you all are sharing with me. And I feel responsible. Separating, leaving.
Well, yeah, there's some accountability, a little bit.
It hurts. And I wish I was a better husband.
It doesn't say better dad. Sorry. Gotta point it out. That's what we're here to do. We're here to analyze so we can learn as much as possible. Oh my word. Not like, I wish I was a better dad. Given the context of the situation, they've just told him, your son escaped, okay, Jodi's house. Emaciated. Injured. Daughter in the closet. It took hours for her to even talk and to be able to eat. And he's like, I wish I was a better husband. I know that he means so that he didn't have to leave. But at this point, especially at this point, just focus on being a dad. He's just sad that, his wife is probably going to prison, and she did.
I know you're all doing your jobs. And I know you all have the best interests of my kids in mind. And I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That means a lot.
I just want my kids back. I want my family back.
I'm just going to pause there for a second. Talks to Animal says, if the husband knew what was going on, why didn't he go to the authorities? I would also reverse that question. Why did he not open the door when the authorities were there and they were concerned because neighbors had called and his own eldest daughter had called? Why didn't he then open the door?
I want my wife back.
Oh wait, I just want to go back a few seconds here.
Your jobs.
There you go.
And I know you all have the best interests of my kids in mind. And I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That means a lot.
I just want my kids back. I want my family back. I want my wife back. Okay.
don't want this to sound rude, Kevin. We've got some things to do, but we're not kicking you out. But the building's closed. Okay. You're gonna be okay driving home? I really am worried about you. Okay. Do your best, breathe. Gotta pull over the side of the road. Do you drink Red Bulls?
Want your water to go, Kevin?
Like, do you drink Red Bull? He's like, do you drink Red Bull? Final question of the day. Now, let's fetch that. Just gotta find it quickly. Give me a second. Okay, wait, let me put a picture for you to look at. Okay, we'll look at this. For now, that was the house. There we go. Okay, so let me find that second interview, which I was going to do tomorrow. But many of you are in chat saying, we need to listen to it now. So, okay. Let me just find it in my files here. Just hold on 1 second. Okay. There we go. Audio and Kevin Franke interview.
Hey guys.
Can you hear it?
Thank you for meeting with us.
Were you there the first?
Now, I hope you can hear it. Can you hear it? It's a little bit soft right now. But I wish I knew the exact date of this interview. Does anybody know? If you guys know the date of this interview, because of course, if I was going to do this tomorrow, I would be more prepared. I would have a little collage to go with it. A nice presentation, okay? Now we're going to look at this and listen to the interview. Okay, so this is his second interview. I saw someone post on X that it's like from 2021, but that doesn't make sense to me. What? This was from 2023, the first interview. So when was the second interview? But he does give a lot more information about Jodi and that whole dynamic. And it's very interesting to hear the influence that Jodi Hildebrandt had on their family, right? Okay, so if anyone knows the exact date or you have an article or something I'm also going to be looking, then please send it to me. grizzlytruecrime@gmail.com. Let's listen to the second interview. Here it is. It's 49 minutes long.
I was there. I don't think I interviewed with you.
Okay.
Lieutenant Studley was with me the first time.
I don't
So.
remember a lot.
Yeah, oh, you're okay.
I don't blame you. It's a lot all at once, and
Usually long time no see is a good thing when you're dealing with a detective.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, but I know that both of my kids have mentioned both of you by names, and particularly with you. And
He's a good kid.
Do you guys by chance have a card?
I do in the car,
I don't have
Okay.
one.
but not
Okay.
on me. So I'll grab that for you though.
Okay.
So, like I talked to Mr. Kessler about, I just want this to be totally ran by you. I won't ask you any questions that are incriminating. We're not looking at you as a suspect or anything like that. We just are more curious of the dynamic and Jodi coming into your relationship, your lives. So, if you kind of just want to walk us through that on how she came into your lives and then where things started to change.
Jodi, you mean?
Jodi.
Or,
Jodi.
I thought
Jodi.
you said Julie, but
Oh,
you meant
Jodi.
Jodi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got to be after, right? Yeah, so Eliza said, that's what I was also thinking. September 2023, right? So the first one was in August 30th of 2023. Peniel saying boost. Okay, I'll try my best to boost. Like boost. Now it's not, the usual. It won't work now. The boost button doesn't work now. But I'm going to try my best to boost it, okay? So I think this was a couple of weeks later, or about a month later. Second police interview. I'll put a little title up to say second police interview now, up there. We're going to guesstimate. It's audio only. It's audio only, okay? So that's why I'll say, oh, thank you. There we go. Karen, thank you. September 12th, the 2nd. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to put that up now. And as I say, I'm going to make a case file for you. And there I will put in visuals and everything to make it nice. When I put everything together, it'll be quite a long video because it's going to be everything that we're watching in all these segments all in one go. If you wanted to just watch that without commentary and stuff like that, there I'll put in those details. Thank you so much. September 12th of 2023, the second interview. Okay.
Jodi. Yeah.
yeah, I can do that. I'll ask first, have you found the pen papers?
The pen papers. So we found quite a bit of different journals.
We believe they're on the computer, and the rest of them are sealed, like they're trying to mail them off. but we do not have a direct copy of it, no.
Because my understanding was we had purchased as a Christmas present for Jodi in 2021 a leather folder that, 3 inches thick or whatever, and it had engraved on the leather on the outside the pen papers, and Ruby wrote detailed notes of everything, all interactions with Jodi and Pam Botcher from August 2021 until I don't know when. But
And you're saying something like, is it like a satchel looking leather bit, or is it more like a binder?
no, it's like I don't even know what to call it. But
It's flat.
it's yeah. So
It's
you
just like a
see
shorter, because we do have Ruby's journal, which is from those dates that you
these
mentioned.
these
About this
things
big?
are going to be so. She wouldn't write the stuff she wrote in the pen paper. She would not write in her journal. The stuff she wrote in the.
He's talking about pen papers, and it is basically Jodi's scriptures, the visions that she's having directly from God, that she's telling Ruby about and Ruby's writing down. So it's these things that he's very protective of. Am I very loud compared to the audio? I'm so sorry. But that's apparently what those pen papers are. Okay.
Pen papers was not intended to be read by anybody until God would decree them to be written as scripture for the whole world to read.
Okay.
I believe that's what we
have that.
have.
Okay.
Because you're saying the pen would be different, correct? Like a...
Well, it was just in a thing called the pen papers. So it was, and that's how Ruby referred to those papers.
Yeah.
So it described all of the visions and trances and everything that Jodi and Ruby went into.
How thick would you say it was?
It was like 3 inches thick or so. And there were hundreds of pages of written documents that Ruby had. And that was given to Jodi in 2022 when she left and returned to her home in January. So,
This is similar.
yeah, like it would look like that.
Okay.
That's not the journal that we have, so...
No, I think you're talking, it looks like a satchel. Or
It's something Jodi would not want found.
Yeah.
But she wouldn't want to destroy it.
Because
either.
we
the
didn't
empty
find that
one.
in the
We
home.
found an empty one.
We did find an empty one,
I don't
so...
remember saying anything on it though. There's an empty thing like that.
Yeah.
There was a full thing, but it was.
If
further
the
back.
empty one says the pen papers on the outside of it, then they emptied it and did something with it.
We'll go back through our photos and see if that's...
Yeah.
Because everything in the
If-
home was photographed. So.
If you're interested in Pam Botcher,
Mhm.
that's going to tie Pam Botcher to all of this. What's in those documents?
Okay.
Okay, so
Can I just interrupt for a minute? I'm sorry.
Sure.
And now I can't see when it's silent portions either. So Ruby was recording the pen papers because Ruby believed that these will become scripture. So this was almost like one could plausibly speculate. We're just speculating. Plausibly speculate this was a cult, very much like Chad Daybell and Lori Bella Daybell forming, because they truly believed in what they were doing. They believed in these like almost like trance-like states that they were getting to, 5 hours of group meditation, Ruby, Jodi, and some lady called Pam, okay? And then they would have these visions and then they would write that down. But they believed that the pen papers, the things that Jodi was saying, those would become scripture, okay? Jodi always said, stay in truth. She had a desire for world domination. Okay. I tried to boost the sound like 200%. I don't know if it's any better yet. Sorry about that. Let's go forward a little bit.
Copy the order.
Okay, let me see if I can find it.
okay, thank you. In in 2018, we were cycling. Ruby had a very close friend named Paige Hannah, who lives in Mapleton, who was a massive fan of Connections and Jodi Hildebrandt. And in fact, the Hannahs are on the cover of their book. If you've probably seen them. And so Ruby started to speak with Jodi towards the end of 2018, early 2019, with the intention of having her be the therapist.
Why does the audio cut out so much?
Jodi always had a larger interest in communicating with the parents more than with the actual patient, which I always found curious. But her theory was, if you want to help your child, you have to help yourself first, and then you'll know how to help the child. So she spoke with Ruby frequently, and the frequency of their communications ramped up. And then the first conversation that Jodi had with Chad was in June of 2019 while we were on a trip to the East Coast. All of her visits with Chad were virtual through Zoom. But she would talk with Ruby on the phone or through Zoom quite frequently. So Jodi met with
Sorry for the silence, it's redacted parts, of course.
things got really, it got strange around the fall of 2020. The Hannahs were trying to convince and bring Ruby into thank you.
Thanks.
Into this organization called Connections, and that particularly were focused on things like lust versus love, and healthy marriages, happier marriages, happier relationships. She invited me to go to it was like a conference or something held at Thanksgiving Point in Lehigh. And there were like 100 people there, and that was in the fall of 2019, maybe late summer 2019, late summer 2019. And my impression at that time was this is absolute craziness. This is a bunch of man-hating women that are just looking for excuses to tear down their husbands, and I mean that's what it felt like to me when I was in there.
And I think he's spot on there. That was the red flag, right? That's what to learn. Yeah. If anyone is coming in and just breaking down anyone in the family, especially a parent, just red flag. Why? Shame. But he really thought at that point, saying shame for a moment, that he wow, he's the problem. He has to improve. And I mean, we can see that pattern with the kids as well, because when the 12-year-old boy escaped and he went to talk to the neighbor, he said, why do you have this duct tape on you? What is this? He said, no, it's my fault. It's my fault. It's because of what I did. People blaming themselves, also very common in cults. This is an alleged cult. It's not an official one. I just think it was in those stages of really forming, right? Let me know what you think.
It was confusing because there were people that I respected a lot that were up on the stage with microphones in hand, giving testimonials of how great this was and how it changed their lives and their marriage, and the Hannahs were among them, and so yeah, it was confusing. Ruby, then we went on a trip with the Hannahs to the UK in October of 2019, And I swear the whole objective of the trip was to like convince me to get into connections, because all of them were in it except me. But you know, they made some really eloquent arguments, and I agreed to join a men's group with Jodi in January of 2020, and I would do it for 3 months. So I started that men's group in 2020, and you know, the group, I don't know if you've ever been to like an addiction recovery group, but that's what it was. That's what it felt like. I mean,
just a quick pause as he's going to explain more about this men's group and, you know, all the things he was doing. One-Eyed Cat says, Ruby's journal said, which we'll still go over sometime. I guess there's so much to go over, right? If you want me to, let me know in the comments if you want me to keep going with this case. There's so many things to look at. You said Ruby's journal said that R wanted to go, there's a little boy, you guys, that escaped, wanted to go to jail, and he left a note the first time that he ran away that he'd call them from jail. When he asked to be taken to the police, he thought he was turning himself in. Kind of like that, yeah. So apparently he, in his punishment, when he was sent outside to stand on the rocks and in the hot sun, right, in the desert, because he was being threatened that he's going to jail the whole time, he wrote a message using rocks. And that was the first time he tried to escape. And he said, like at jail or in jail, you know, he'll call from there. Like meaning, well, he's done with his threats of being thrown in jail. He's just going to go and turn himself in. Right? So, yes, that is very sad when you think of it like that, that when he escaped the second time, he's like, I need you to take me to the nearest police station. He's just like turning himself in and blaming himself. A 12-year-old boy. Oh my goodness.
There were probably 10 men in there. It was on Zoom. All of them were like working through, you know, various stages of like sex addiction, porn addiction, drug addiction, and it was just it was like a 12-step group, but intended just for general like addiction recovery. And I really was like, what the hell am I doing here? Like, I don't belong here. But everyone's like, no, come here, like you can learn to have a better like life and a better marriage. And so I thought, okay, whatever. I went through my three, you know, obligatory 3 months, and I was ready to leave. And then I got challenged to.
Oh, thank you.
And then I got challenged to sit down and have a vulnerable conversation with my wife and ask her how my lustful choices have affected her. And, you know, to me that was like a loaded question. I thought, you know, I still didn't see what I had done or anything that would constitute any form of like, you know, abuse or anything like that. And but I did. I took the challenge and I sat down, and for 2 hours Ruby very emotionally just shared how she felt in our marriage and how the things that I over 20 years of marriage, you know, asking for sex as a husband frequently, or asking her to wear lingerie or things like that, how that made her feel. And it was really emotional, and it touched me. Like, I didn't realize that she felt so strongly about that she felt so hurt by that. And so I committed that I would really give it a go. And I stayed in the men's group. And so, you know, in that men's group, I met with Jodi every week, with the other men that were in the group. And then it got weird because like our marriage felt like it was getting better and stronger. So this was now, you know, summer and fall of 2020, and in addition to that, there was the whole YouTube cancel thing. I don't know how much you guys are even interested or aware of that, but in May of 2020, some videos that Ruby released on that dealt with Chad just blew up in her face, and it was all over the news, and hundreds of thousands of TikTokers and all this stuff were just piling on and basically burned down like our YouTube channel. And overnight, like the income went, we lost 90% of the income overnight, and that was hard.
Was this like the, which episode was this? Was this the one where they talked about like the beanbag? Or
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, and then they started going back and trying to dig and find, and then they'd find these little nuggets like, oh, look, Eve went to school without a lunch one day, or stuff like that. But it was the beanbag video that really set people off.
So then they went back from there.
Mm-hmm. So
even there, Kevin and Ruby blame, and I believe it was Ruby that said it's like angry teenagers were flagging their videos, and she had this belief that teenagers didn't want their own parents to see this excellent advice that she was giving out there in the world. So they basically cancelled her and her channel, right? Or their channel. And here you can also hear the kind of tone that it's like all these people, he's minimizing what happened. The disproportionate punishments, and like, oh man, there was like one day when, the little one, the youngest girl, forgot to pack a lunch, and guess what Ruby did? The teacher said, I'm very concerned, I'm really uncomfortable when she's like hungry, and can you please drive here and just bring her lunch? And she said no, she has to learn the consequences. She didn't pack a lunch, she's got to learn those consequences. But your mom is supposed to pack you the lunch, you know what I mean? So she's making like it's this little girl's sole duty only. In the morning she has to get up, do a chore, she mustn't cry, otherwise she doesn't get breakfast, and then she's going to pack her own lunch, and if she forgets it, that's on her. She can starve all day, which is very disproportionate. So he's minimizing that, which is concerning to me as well. Cake? Like cake. You said, how could you prevent cult-like things like this? Is there a way? Well, education, information, I think is helpful. Learning all about coercive control, learning all about cults. What we're doing here is learning about it together. Just, and we've covered a few cults already, on this channel. And my goal on this channel is always to share lessons. Like, what can we learn from this together? We could just observe this together and say, what can we learn from this to keep ourselves safe, to keep our families safe, to keep us from not going down this path, right? In any context, all the cases we look at, spot the red flags, read the room, educate ourselves. So I think that's how. Let's keep this in. We're in 14 minutes in, it's 49 minutes long.
At that time, Ruby was really distraught. She was looking for support. She was looking for someone who would understand her, who would validate her, and she found that in Jodi. All the stuff she did with Chad was because of Jodi, and so it makes sense that she would go to Jodi, for emotional support when she felt like her world was burning down. In the meantime, I felt like our marriage was getting stronger. It felt better. Like we didn't fight as much, and even though we were having less sex, it felt more connecting, and it was just. I thought, wow, this is great. Like, this is great, and I was happy to be the guy up on the stage. That started sometime in like late 2020. Or the fall of 2020, there would be a conference, and Ruby would say, I thought we were just attending it, but then she'd say, hey, they wanted us to get up and tell our story, and I'm like, oh, okay, sure. And so I'd get up and just say, like, yeah, I was the guy who said, I think this is a bunch of, like, man-hating, women, but it really has made a difference in my marriage, and it really did. Like, I believed it.
At least he says believed in past tense. It really made a difference to his marriage. It really helped. Doesn't seem like it. One out of the two of you is in prison now. Right? This was before she was sentenced, though. Yes. Austin says, on Ruby's calls with Kevin, he explains that the only way to get the kids back is if they make it look like they are distancing themselves with divorce. It's all smoke. Oh, it's all a smokescreen. They aren't divorcing. I believe that too, Austin. That's what it seems like. We played some of the calls yesterday in my, the video that I put together, my little production of all the clips and things that I put together for you. But when I make that case file for you, I will also include all this entire FOIA file that the public has access to, which is amazing that they've done this, because Utah is normally like, it's very hard to get documents and body cam and things like that out of Utah. But they made this available to the public 30 days after Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt was sentenced, which is interesting. I'm glad they did, so we can all learn, right?
And so those conferences and stuff, everything continued like that until March of 2021, when after a conference, a connections conference down in St. George, all the inner circle, all the people who were being trained as mental fitness coaches and stuff. So that was Ruby and a bunch of other people and their spouses. We went out to like a dinner afterwards, and that's where Jodi really opened up to the women in a private conversation that she believed she was being tormented and haunted by shadow figures every night, and that was spooky, and I don't know exactly what happened, but the Hannahs do. All I know is at some point within a couple days of that, in that month of March, the Hannahs drove down from Mapleton and picked Jodi up and brought her back to their home in Mapleton, and she lived for 6 weeks in that home in Mapleton. And this is where,
So that was in March of 2021. Jodi had some sort of mental health crisis and spent 6 weeks at a friend's house. She claimed that she was kidnapped, but the friends say that she was saying that she was threatening to end her own life, and she was also making advances on the husband in the house there. Okay, that's with this family called the Hannahs. And someone in chat said the Hannahs are also like a vlogging influencer family. I haven't checked out the channel or anything. But did you know that Ruby's family, all her siblings, were so inspired by, her success on YouTube that they all started their own YouTube channels too? Yes. So, okay. I don't think it's anything like that. I'm just saying, interesting, just looking at my notes here. Little bits I can add, I'm going to add. So just for context as well, March of 2021 is when, interestingly, Jodi has some kind of mental health crisis, which is a red flag. If that's happening, and then right after that, she's teaching people how to be better humans, rigorously responsible, impeccably honest, like, oh my word, there's a mental health problem here.
I don't know what happened, but I do know that there's two different sides of stories. They tried to introduce her to a new cult lady that the Hannahs were getting into. So they wanted to merge their cults into one, apparently. And
They referred to it as a cult at the time?
oh no. No one in a cult says, I'm in a cult.
Right. I was wondering.
That's the most accurate statement he's made so far. No one in a cult says, oh, I'm in a cult. People don't know. It's part of that. It's like grooming, that chipping away at one's self-worth, that curse of control, slowly but surely getting those claws into people until they're just like, okay, I'll hand you everything. I'm all yours. I believe in everything you say, type of thing. So that is true what he said there. No one who's in a cult says, hey, I'm in a cult.
But from your perspective, it looks like two cult leaders merging together.
From where I stand now, absolutely. According to Jodi, she was held against her will for 6 weeks and was kidnapped, and she escaped and got out. According to the Hannahs, after 6 weeks of Jodi stabbing herself with forks and knives, cutting herself, and wanting to commit suicide and trying to seduce the husband of the family, they kicked her out. I don't know what's the truth.
See, apparently we heard in the early, what did we hear in the early interview? Maybe it's still coming up, actually. I think it's still coming up. It's just what I heard earlier, earlier in my day. So apparently Jodi always wore like hoodies and long sleeve tops, even in the blazing heat in the desert, because she was always trying to cover her arms because she self-harmed, right? And Ruby apparently told Kevin that her arms were all like mutilated. Okay, I hope that's not triggering for anyone. If it is, I'm so sorry. I just wanted to say that. And so that, and then Jodi talking about being molested as a child and the abuse that she suffered, the isolation, starvation, that she had eating disorders, all kinds of things. You know, she went on to become a counselor, but she really needed therapy. You know what I mean? Like, she really needed help. And maybe medication if she's seeing shadow people and all sorts of things. So the beginning is sad of her story, where the empathy ends for me, because we can look at, as I've always said, we can look at serial killers and feel empathy for them as children and maybe what they endured, because many of them endured lots of trauma. But the minute that they decide as adults to now start harming other people, well, that's where the empathy ends for me. You know, the empathy can be compartmentalized. So Jodi, it sounds like she had a terrible upbringing, lots of trauma, but, and so the self-harm is a sign of that as well. But, you know, that she's suffering. She's still mentally suffering. But now that she was projecting all of that on kids, ooh, that's really, well, and on men, it sounds like just about on anyone. Just projecting, she couldn't deal with it almost. Like, just like now everyone's going to be punished too. It's just horrible, man. It's poor kids.
Maybe a little bit of both, I don't know. But the point is, somewhere around mid-April, Jodi was back in her home in Ivans, and she was a hot mess. And she reached out to Ruby for help. And Ruby was always jealous of the Hannahs, that they had a better relationship with Jodi than she did. Ruby, and this is like, goes back to her childhood. She wanted to be the best friend. She wanted to be the most liked. She wanted to be the one that everybody knew. And so it hurt her that she felt like she was being excluded from what was going on at the Hannah's house. And then she'd say, why are so many secrets? And the Hannahs would say, it's not secret, it's sacred. And when the time's right, you can know too, you know. So we went down to Jodi's house in May of 2021. That was the first time I'd ever been there. And it blew my mind, as I'm sure you have walked in there and gone, how does a therapist live like this? Like, didn't make sense to me. But we were there, and she opened up and talked about, you know, her struggles and what was going on. And I gotta say, like, I'm a smart guy. I'm an engineer. I've designed and helped build some really big stuff. I've been a college professor. I can't explain some of the stuff that happened while we were there. Like crashes in the basement while we were talking upstairs, and plates like in the kitchen just flying off by themselves. Like,
to me, that is a red flag for hallucinogenics. Like all the cacti they've got growing around there. We know that can also make that, right? Who knows why he's suddenly seeing all this, you know, and they're all experiencing the same thing. It can happen. It can happen with hallucinogenics, right? JPC said, in the docuseries, The Program, there's a connection to Utah in the final episode. Jodi used the same tactics, punishments, and seminars. Yes. Thank you for being a member for 3 months. Thank you all for being here, by the way, as we make our way through all of these files and discuss this unbelievable case. How sad for these children. Oh my goodness. And you know what I wonder? How many lives, how many children's lives did Jodi Hildebrandt destroy? Because she taught so many families to absolutely boot camp grill their kids. I worry about that. How many others did she influence to inflict child abuse on their own children? To parent the way that she wants them to? How many people did she control? How many people did she blackmail, extort? I really worry about that.
Full speed smashing on the wall and falling to the floor like, by themselves. I can't explain it, but I saw it with my own eyes, and I don't have any way to explain it other than there's some crazy shit going on. Ruby was convinced that we could intervene and help Jodi. I didn't want to.
See that there as well. Ruby was convinced that we can intervene and help Jodi. And here it really gets bad because Ruby's like, I know, let her move in with us. And so already there, Jodi had her claws in Ruby and was influencing her and her decisions a lot. I think catalyzing what was already dormant in her, clearly, from the videos that we've seen and how she treated her children. Helen says, gee, could you cover the court case? This case needs justice for the children. There was no trial. There was no trial. There was just the sentencing. Is that what you mean? Helena, thank you so much. I really appreciate your $20 super sticker. Thank you.
Nothing to do with it. I tried to get the bishop involved and say, hey, go to the priesthood and the church and all that stuff. Just go to your support network. But Ruby continued to be like, no, we can help. Like, she doesn't want that. Could you imagine what happened to her reputation if this got out and stuff? Let's help her. So we went down a couple more times between May and August, but it reached the point where in August, her bishop at the time, a guy who's down there in Kayenta named Scott Galbraith, he's not our bishop anymore, but I mean, he was going over there every night, and he'd be there for 4 hours, and he'd be like, I'm fighting evil spirits, I'm casting demons out, I'm crazy stuff going on, and finally he got to the point where he's like, I can't do this anymore. There needs to be some sort of resolution. It was at that point that they said, why don't you take her up to your house? And I was like, oh, hell no. I don't want this in my house. But I was beaten over the head with it. That's really insensitive. She's done so much to help our family, and you're being selfish, and she has needs.
Oh, no. It's called boundaries. Ruby didn't like those. Whatever Ruby wanted, she would get. And she even said that on one of her videos, that she would do anything to get whatever it is she wants, she is going to get. So if she wants Jodi to move in, Jodi's moving in. Everyone else is just selfish and distorted, which is what Jodi said, what she taught. It's almost as if you feel like, no, I'm uncomfortable. You set a boundary. No, that's just distorted thinking. Don't worry about those things. Just listen to us. My word.
And come on, it won't be for long. And so I relented, and I was like, okay, actually, this could kind of be fun. Let's just make it fun, and we'll she needs a vacation, so we'll just go take drives up the canyon and stuff like that. And it turned into just crazy house. The moment she showed up in my house, just the weirdest crap started happening. Lights turning on and off, sounds of people walking in walls, and sounds like footprints going up walls and across the ceiling, and stuff floating around, and it was weird, and I hated it. And I became the resident exorcist. That was the title I came up with myself. I thought it was kind of funny.
So a lot of these people have got quite grandiose views of themselves. One is writing scripture, getting messages directly from God. Another one is the resident exorcist. Oh, all of a sudden you know how to do that. Okay. It's just, wow, right? Yeah, weird stuff started happening. Oh, she brought a little cactus juice with her, did she?
But it was my job to like go and give her blessings whenever she started to like go into a trance and go into possession, and which started to be a lot. And Ruby would go up and check on her. It started like every 4 hours at night, and then it moved every 2 hours at night, then it moved every hour at night, and then at some point Ruby said, you know what, I'm just going to start sleeping in there.
And there it is. Okay, target acquired. I'm just going to start sleeping in there. It's just like all these, it's like now we're talking, sorry, like The Exorcist, you know, and she's doing like dark, deep voices, and she's saying, I am Satan's bride. Oh, okay. Well, Ruby was like, you know what? I'm going to go lie next to Satan's bride. Just going to sleep next to her, okay? You cool with that, bro? You sleep on the couch. We're just going to be sleeping up there together. Okay? I need to help her. Shame, this poor woman. And the next minute it's like, Kevin, we need to talk. You need to move out. And he's like, oh man, it's all me. It's all my fault. It's me and this porn. Well, I still want to know what porn. But okay, it's him and lust. I would like to give Jodi and Ruby a mirror. Was the lust in their own room? Well, it was actually the marital room, you know, with Kevin and Ruby. But Kevin was kicked out. Okay, kicked to the curb. And then eventually kicked out of the house. Wow. As in like couch, house, out you go. Thank you. So Jodi, sleepovers every night. I'm like, okay.
If I need you, I'll come down and get you. I'm like, that's kind of weird, but okay. And that was that. They started sleeping in the same bed. And then she started having like trances and stuff. I would say probably September, where she believed that she was going to heaven and seeing God and Jesus and talking with them. And she would get together with Pam Botcher. Ruby, Pam, and Jodi would get together and do these interventions.
Oh, okay. Suddenly they're having these interventions. Now it's 3 ladies. Okay, so now we've got Ruby, we've got Jodi, and we've got Pam coming over. Pam is where the teenage kids were found. 2 of them, right? The 2 youngest, Jodi's house, severely abused. The ones at Pam's house, doing manual labor as minors. Okay, I mean like housework. All kinds of things they were doing for Pam. Pam was part of Connections. And then the 2 eldest had moved out already. But wow. Stephanie says, thank you for all you do. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Now listen to this, because you're going to hear it's going to get weird.
That's what they call them. And so they just go up and lock themselves in a room for 4 or 5 hours, and then they'd come out and they'd all just be on cloud 9, and Ruby would share with me like she had this amazing vision, and I wrote it and recorded it all down.
What is a vision or an orgasm? I'm just saying. It just sounds like, wow, they were all on cloud 9 after 5 hours in that room together. Just amazing times. An intervention upstairs. Wow.
And we have a work to do from God, and you're part of it, and the bishop's part of it, and we're all part of bringing all this stuff to the world. And so it was, and it continued like that until I wanted to move on with life. And I would call it dragging my heels, so that was around October. And Jodi flipped out because during one intervention, Chad was in the backyard with a bunch of friends, and it was my job to keep all the kids contained in the basement watching movies or playing video games. And I took the dog.
Oh, the kids had to go into the... It's just sounding like very hectic right now. I'm just one of those that's going to say, like, what is going on up there? With these interventions. What you got up there, ladies? Because you're saying, listen, the kids can't be in the backyard. They got to be in the basement watching movies. Oh, okay.
We're on a walk, and I thought they were done, but they weren't done. And Chad had all his high school friends over in the backyard. Jodi flipped out. She was ready to come back to Ivan's on her own that night, and Ruby and Pam talked her into staying. But that was the first night where Ruby said, I want a separation from you. And it was an in-home separation. And so it was, it was hard. Basically, there were all these rules now placed on me. Like, I could leave when I wanted, but I couldn't come back until Ruby gave me permission. I couldn't come into the kitchen to eat until Ruby gave me permission. And the upstairs where Jodi roamed was completely off limits. I couldn't go upstairs anymore in my own house.
In his own house, the upstairs, where Jodi roamed. Damn. Where she roamed. With her visions. I'm waiting to hear it, man. Someone here, she's going to talk about visions of riding a pet lion in heaven called Charles. Oh, the lion's name is Charles. Oh, okay.
And there would be, Ruby would dictate all of the terms of how our interactions would be, when we would talk, and that was hard. And it was during that time that I really became, I would say, dependent upon Ruby. Like, if she said a kind word to me, like, my whole day was made, right? And so that separation continued all the way up until the holidays, maybe the last week of December, first week of January, and then Ruby ended that separation. Jodi went home the second week of January. But by that time, like, Ruby, Pam, and Jodi were completely determined to do this work that they felt God had for them.
By that point, they were completely determined, okay, ramp up the amount of these interventions they're having.
And I thought it was crazy. Like, I thought it was just batshit crazy. Like, Ruby, you have a reputation, you have a multi-million-dollar business, you have a brand, and you are just giving it away. She wanted to legally, like, work with Jodi's attorney to basically give Jodi 8 passengers.
Don't you think that's quite hectic? It's like she's in love. Like, why are you giving? Or she's being coercively controlled. I don't know which one it is. Ruby just wants to give Jodi the 8 passengers channel and all the income, the business, the brand, which, by the way, the brand is the kids, which is even more disturbing. The brand is exploiting the children. And Ruby just wants to just give it to Jodi. It's my gift to her.
And become an employee of Connections. So basically the contract was Ruby gives Jodi everything and Ruby gets nothing in return. Our manager, our YouTube manager at the time was like, red flags. Like, I don't know how to tell you, she is scamming you.
Yes.
Ruby fired him.
Man, so there was a YouTube manager that was like, listen, red flags, she's scamming you. And they're like, okay, that's it, you're fired. Well, someone tried to tell them, right? My goodness. Wow, okay, just reading all your comments.
And I was like, I believe our manager, I think he's right. And Ruby started threatening me with another separation. And just like, this isn't about money, this is about doing God's work. And so we continued in that dynamic for the next 6 or 7 months until she went on a trip with Jodi and Pam down to Arizona. And I think they, like, when I read her journal, she went into Mexico or something and bought drugs or something, like.
Right there, we can just pause. He then says prescription drugs, but what? They all went on a little trip, Arizona or something. Oh, did they visit Lori Valodeba? Okay, Arizona, and then I think from her journal I read they went to Mexico and they bought drugs or something. Yeah, prescription drugs, but oh, hallucinogenics? Or what? Like, what kind of drugs were they buying? What is going on? He just says it so casually. Austin said, yet you never spoke up, Kevin. You never said, ish. Exactly. Wow. Okay. Sure.
Prescription drugs for the emergency kits. And when she came back from that trip, before she even brought the bags into the house, she pulled me in and said, I want to talk with you. And that's when she asked me to leave. And that was July 20th, 2022.
July 20th. Okay, they had the conversation of, now I want you to leave. You can't just be on the couch anymore. Jodi will not only be roaming upstairs, but this whole house is basically hers now, and I just want to give her everything. So basically, it's kind of like a girlfriend now, or what? If we just break it down, just to like normal layman's terms, just like, oh, you got a new girlfriend. Okay. Tiff Knox says, why? That's a good point. Why was he reading a journal? I guess boundaries don't matter in this household.
My interactions with Jodi at that point became one of Jodi. I was still in the men's groups, but the dynamic changed. Instead of being like one of the top people that helped run groups and helped support, all of a sudden I felt like I got knocked to the bottom. And Jodi was just piling on me every week in the men's groups. And the other men just do whatever Jodi does. If Jodi piles on somebody, they all pile on. If Jodi praises somebody, they all praise. And so it really felt like a pack of dogs. And Jodi was the alpha. And whoever she, sicked the dogs on, they would go. Whoever she
That's otherwise known as a cult.
Praise, the dogs would just lick them up and down, and that's how these groups went. And so once I was in separation, every week was just hell, psychological hell, and Jodi was running it. Everything was on Zoom, and I knew that the only way I would ever get back into my house was I had to get Jodi's approval. Because if I didn't get Jodi's approval, I would never get Ruby's approval. But it felt like an impossible task, because no matter what I did, no matter how much I tried to track better, be truthful and not be selfish, every week it was like, you're being manipulative, you're being selfish, you're lying, you're hiding something, you're still hiding stuff. And I really started to question my sanity, honestly.
And this was Jodi that we were talking about.
That would be from all the gaslighting, right? Questioning his own sanity and reality and what is really going on here?
And so that continued for an entire year, but it became more and more and more and more and more isolating until Jodi had an approved list of men that I could make phone calls to, and it was basically 3 men. But 2 of those, all 3 of those 3 men were like, we don't want to do phone calls with you anymore because you're being manipulative. And I'm like, well, who told you that? Well, Jodi did. So I was completely cut off. And if I went to my church leaders, I was seeking enablement. If I went to my family, I was seeking enablement. If I went to anybody, I was seeking enablement. And so it felt like a no-win. I felt trapped. And that's where I was all the way up until the last week of July, when Jodi called me one day out of the blue and just said, I don't understand why you're not getting it. You're not changing. I don't get it. So I've been asking God what to do, and God told me that you need just to have complete, what's the word they would use? Solitude with God.
Become a monk.
Oh, like solitary confinement for him. Okay, I wish they would give them some solitary confinement. Johnny said, dude, you needed to grow some huevos for the kids. Right? Wow. And yeah, why is there no concern about what? Where? Well, the two eldest kids had moved out. So, because when Kevin left, I think that catalyzed the two elder kids being like, yeah, I'm out. But then the four youngest are in there. 2 teens and 1 12-year-old, 1 9-year-old. Actually, they were younger at that point. This was in 2021, right? Yeah, 2021. Oh my word, even younger, like 10 and 7. And teenagers. Oh, what? What's happening with them? What's going on there? Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, I don't want you to come to men's group anymore. And I don't want you to do phone calls with any of the men. And I'm like, well, then who am I going to talk with? Who's going to support me? God will. You need to learn to go to God. And so I'm just like, there's nobody. You're just, I'm going to be completely cut off. And she's like, no, you'll have God. And so that was the last week of July, and that was my last interaction and contact with Jodi. But it was strange because at that time, around that time, things with Ruby started like picking up, and I didn't understand why, but like Ruby wanted to meet in a parking lot and wanted me to sign over titles of documents, like the 2 of our cars wanted me to sign them over to her name. And
To Ruby.
Mm-hmm. But I was like, okay, I'm just not, I'm in total compliance mode at this point. Just like, I'm a good husband, you see, you can trust me. And
oh no. No. Being a good husband doesn't have to mean being compliant. Ooh, those cats are doing something. Sorry if you can hear the noise. Shame. Like, oh my, he's like, I was in total compliance mode. Just like, okay. Like, shame, man. At what point can he say, I'm really uncomfortable now? What are you doing? Why do I have to sign over everything now? He's losing everything.
so whatever she asked, like, sign over the cars to me. No questions, just okay. And then another thing, she was like, I might want to do an investment, but I will need your signature. Do you trust me enough that I could get your signature if I wanted to pursue my own investment? Yeah, sure. Whatever you say.
How big of an investment was she talking about? What did she tell you?
She never did, and I never signed anything. She never brought anything to me. But when I returned to the house, everything was packed up, and a neighbor came over and said she asked for the HOA rules and mentioned to him that she wanted to rent the house out. Which I was like, are you kidding me?
At that point, he's like, are you kidding me? Yeah, there's a lot of like, what? Yeah, Squinting Cat says, gee, oh no, are plates flying? I think plates are flying here, you guys. And the cats, they are causing it. So we at 35 minutes out of 49, okay? Just so you know.
And apparently she wanted to sell the house, but couldn't because my name was on the mortgage. And I think that's what she was talking about of, will you sign something if I just put it in front of you? And you know what? I probably would have. Like, that's how messed up I was.
I'm glad you didn't.
Me too. That would have been disastrous.
Yeah.
But I can't describe to you what torture and hell it was to live an entire, it was more than a month really, in complete isolation, believing that I was like evil and, I mean, manipulative and lying and selfish, and that I had abandoned my family, and that I was more interested in my selfishness than my family.
And I think moving forward, you going through that is going to be extremely helpful.
Now they redact a little bit there, of course. If it's kids' names, they're saying they redact that or whatever it is, that's sensitive information. Wow, yeah, Perennial says the cats are not having this issue. No, they're not. It's bad, right? And so bad that these two women were saying that everybody else is selfish and all kinds of things, but they were selfish. You know, they were supposedly teaching connection and love and truth, but they were the furthest from it.
Felt that way because a lot of those are the same words that were used with them, and you're going to understand how they felt, you know.
We've already talked about that,
Yeah.
actually. And the couple of times we've met, I've said, this is how I felt. Did you feel that way? Like, yes, this is how I felt. Like, when we each confess to things that we didn't do, I'm like, I confess to things I never did. But I was so scared. And he's like, that's what I did too.
And you know who else confessed to things that they never did? 15 years before all of this was Jodi. I think she said it was 15 years before. It was Jodi Hildebrandt's niece. She also said, we can look at that at some point as well. She also said that she eventually just confessed to things, you know, basically saying, yes, I'm a sex addict. Yes, I masturbate all day, because that's what Jodi would tell her all the time. That's what you do. And if you just tell me, then this will stop. So she eventually just confessed to everything that Jodi wanted her to confess to make it stop. That's pretty sick what Jodi does, huh? The psychological abuse, wow.
So we connected on that level, you know, and it's crazy that anybody can get to that level of desperation, but we were there. We were there.
And this was the end of July, what you're saying? End of July 2022, or the last time you saw Jodi was
23.
23. Okay.
The last communication I had with Jodi was the last week of July. Might have been like the first couple days of August, but just
So
that
it's just
little
shortly
time.
before we made contact with you.
Yeah,
Or
a
you
month.
made contact with us.
A month before.
Yeah.
Okay. So for that whole month, my life was literally wake up, exercise, go to work, pretend everything's okay, come home, do connections like workbooks and read scriptures and try to strip selfishness out of my life, like go to bed.
But at the same time, being selfish because you're not thinking of your kids. All of them were being so damn selfish, you know? He was, to some degree, a victim of Jodi's as well, and Ruby's. To some degree. But damn, what about the kids? There's minors in the house. Oh my word. John Luster, TTU, said, OMG, this is the first live in over a year of listening to you. I'm a truck driver for a living, so I can't watch but listen on my runs. Thank you so much for being here and listening to us. Take us with you. Where are we going? Where are we going today?
Wake up, repeat every day. Boom, 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 boom. I mean, I was so upside down. And my plan was in 6 months, I get to reach back out to Jodi again and she'll let me back in the group, and then I can prove, I don't know if I heard a door knock, but
I don't know if I did too.
Might be your kids.
might be. Oh,
And we can,
has it been an hour?
Almost.
I told you it wouldn't take an hour.
So take a couple minutes.
I'm
and
sorry.
we're good too if you need to head out. That was seriously,
I guess
we
the
just
only-
wanted, yeah.
The only questions I would have, and just going back, you said that she was having like these visions of like were you ever privy enough to understand or be told what those visions were?
A couple of them.
What were the two that should we tell you about?
So, like one of them, she was walking along the beach with Jesus, and Jesus challenged her to go walk on the water, and it was a whole lesson on walking on the water. Another, she would walk with Heavenly Father and Heavenly Mother, and she learned about, she had a pet lion in heaven named Charles. I don't know why I never forgot that name, but it was like this.
He says, I don't know why I never forgot that. None of us are ever going to forget that. Jodi had visions of having a pet lion named Charles. Again, did she ever meet Lori Valadeva? And that she's like walking on water or being challenged to and all of that. Wow. A pet lion named Charles. No, we're not going to forget that.
Massive lion, and she got to ride the lion and learned that, you know, all about who she was and this pet lion and all. There was another one where there was a lot of satanic ones where when she would go into possession mode, she would talk in like different voices. It was really creepy. But the voices would say, she's ours, we're not letting go. She is Satan's bride.
Geez, so when she's on the good side of things, then she's just the one to bring scripture into the world. When she's in possession mode, whatever the hell that is, okay, then she's Satan's bride. So she's always incredibly important, okay? Number one.
She's mine.
You know what? Jodi was even cheating on God. She's like, ooh, I'm Satan's bride too. She's two-timing everybody.
I'm going to marry her. You know, so if she was faking it, she believed that she was trying to, or Satan wanted her as her bride.
And then you said,
Yeah, I think she thinks everyone wants her as a bride. Okay then.
clarifying, so the last time you saw the kids was when you separated that in July, is that what I'm thinking? Of 2022. Do you have any questions for us?
No, I'm just really interested in the pen papers. Like, for my own curiosity, I want to know what was going on in all of those little interventions. And
I'll look back through the photos because, like I said, we don't.
I know they're kind of asking him certain questions, but there's not once he's really talking about the kids here too much, huh? Still, from the first interview and this one, it's not really too much concern that we're seeing for the kids, right? He's just very interested in those pen papers, you know, which is what Ruby was taking record of from Jodi's visions, which they believed would be scripture. It sounds like the start of what Chad Daybell had started. Like, do they know about him? Couple of years behind him. Okay, did they have a portal? I don't know.
Documented everything in the home, whether we took it or if we didn't. And then I'll reach out to Mr. Kester and let you know.
So I have
But-
a couple of observations when you're done.
Yeah, go for it.
So I always thought it was interesting, now that you mentioned that she was riding a lion. Kevin told me that when they were having these group meetings, she would never show up. She would show up on the WebEx, but in place of her person would just be this X for the connection. So it's like this Wizard of Oz thing going on. And I just thought that
she
was
never
kind
showed
of-
her face.
Kind of eerie.
She
Yeah.
always covered herself.
Yeah.
Like, even in the hottest of summer, she would wear these hoodies. She would smell so bad.
Yeah.
She would never bathe, but she was trying to hide her arms and stuff because apparently Ruby told me they were just like mutilated. And
So the other thing that I think it's important for them to know is
Like, at what point? You know, when she had moved in there, because it sounds like, you know, like Kevin knows that. Like, she would never bathe. She smelled bad. Okay. But how do you know that? Like, how much did you see her after she'd wormed her way in and stolen your whole family, right? Oh, man.
during that whole time when you were out, you only had communication with Ruby maybe 3 or 4 times. But that each time, or at least on some of the occasions you spoke to her, she's telling you that everything's blissful, we're doing well, you know, everything's so much better without you. And,
Oh, that would be communicated to me by Jodi every week,
okay.
and the men's groups too. And it was just like, you're abandoning your family. And it always hurt so bad because it's like, I want to be with my family so bad. What do you mean I'm abandoning them? If you wanted to be with your family, you would change. You would stop being selfish. But you keep being selfish, so you want it. And it was just felt like, well, how do I stop wanting it then? It's like, then you must change. Well, how do I change? Well, you gotta want it. Well, what? You know, so how do I want it? You gotta change. It's this like
Perpetual cycle.
yeah,
And
there's no, I tried to find my way into that cycle, and it felt like, have you ever had a dream where there's like a problem you're trying to solve, but you can't solve it, and how frustrating you feel? That's what my life felt like. And as I'm looking back and I'm realizing there was no solution. There was, you either had Jodi's approval or you didn't. I wasn't doing anything different than the other men in the group. But they got her approval, so they were praised and they were repenting and they were doing everything right. I, on the other hand, was manipulative and selfish and enabling and blah, 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 blah. And she became like the arbiter of truth, the arbiter of forgiveness, God's own mouthpiece. And it was just messed up.
Well, I'm glad that you're seeing
realizing that.
clearly, you know,
Coming out of
and
the
kind of
fog.
came out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so. Yeah.
One last
Mhm.
discussion. So, in the home, when the warrant was issued, there was a bag with $85,000 cash in
Yes.
it. And I understand her lawyer, Ruby's lawyer, has all that
I'm not.
Which home are we talking about?
Ivan.
In
in
Ivans?
the Ivan's home.
We don't know. The money was left where it was left. We didn't take
Yeah.
it. We didn't keep it with us. The house was secured when we left. We're assuming that Lamar Windward
Yeah,
was
he
able
has
to
it.
retrieve it. But we don't, I can't tell you
Yeah.
one or the other. if we do.
So, here's kind of the issue. That money, she cleaned out their bank accounts.
The kids' savings accounts.
Yeah, and yours too, your joint account.
Yeah.
That's where that money came from.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you can have, or if I need to have a discussion with the county attorney. Kevin would kind of like his kids' money back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it would be civilly, so I would go address that.
Talk to
with
Lamar.
Lamar,
see,
yeah.
see what those funds are being used for.
I don't think he wants to give them up. And I wouldn't either if I
Yeah.
were him.
Yeah.
I think he's using it for attorney fees.
Yeah.
I don't know if the county attorney is gonna be able to separate that out unless the judge has already separated it out. Even the county attorney's gonna look at it and go, it's civil, it's both your guys' money in some sense, and
But
then
if
have
you
to- the judge would
did-
have to divide that up to where it goes. We couldn't do that. He's the county attorney, wouldn't.
If you did go civil, though, I feel like that would be your fastest route to.
It's just dirty what she did.
Yeah.
She
No.
stole
Yeah.
money. She stole money from my 18-year-old son out there. And it's wrong.
Well, the other thing that you didn't, that
Why does he only say the 18-year-old son? She stole all the kids' savings, everything they'd saved for the kids. She stole all the money.
I don't know, I mean, there's a lot there, but I think they need to know that while Jodi was living in your home, she was also purportedly giving therapy to Chad, and Chad was
Every
paying
week.
her. And he's like, what,
At that time, we
15,
were
16?
paying her.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't until Chad moved out that part of his therapy was he needed to pay for his own therapy. So at age 17, he was paying her $900 a month to get brainwashed.
Dad at 17?
He did.
What was he doing for work?
He worked at he's a lifeguard, basically.
Okay.
Lifeguard supervisor at
Most
two
of his
different rec
check.
centers.
Yeah.
So it was like the majority of his check was going to Jodi.
He was paying her more than he was paying rent, wasn't he?
Sounds
3 times as much.
That's crazy.
She's
I
not a
mean,
nice
obviously,
person.
you've seen her house, and what she has, she's making, there's a lot of money going around, and there's a lot of money. I don't know if we can, sorry, I've been a little sick. I'm not sure if we know where that money came from or where it went. Like, it doesn't seem like she's had an income within the past little bit, so.
Were her book sales
I can't imagine. I can't imagine they were. But, anyway, I need to get my kids.
Yeah, we'll
Sound
definitely
good.
let you go.
Thank
And
you. You're
thank you
good.
so much for your time.
Yeah, I don't know why he says I need to get my kids, because from what I researched now, the 4 youngest are with DCYF. So when he says, okay, I gotta go get my kids, where, when?
I
I
appreciate it.
want to cooperate though on anything related to Jodi and Ruby and Pam.
Mhm.
And if I can help.
Well, we appreciate
We'll
that.
reach out to your attorney if that's okay. If you have any other questions, we can do it over the phone or something. We'll have to meet in person. So we can get some clarification.
And that's the end of the clip. So I want to show you one more thing here quickly. Just like this. It's, oh, sorry, no, I'm moving the wrong thing. Hold on 1 second. I just want to move the chat down again. There we go. Okay, so I do wonder where all that YouTube money is, because or were they just living like way beyond their means? I mean, that house was pretty massive, right? I just mean, where is it? If it was a multi-million-dollar business and brand, where's all the money? Because I wish the kids could have it all, right? Don't you? Let me quickly show you this. This one. Okay. So let's just look at this as a finale for today. Even though we could probably be here for, like, as I say, it's like a full trial day. Just discussing all the stuff for many days, because there's so much now. There was already quite a bit out, but now it's like, damn, with everything that was just released to the public, sure, there's a lot to discuss. Okay, Ruby Franke's husband seeks for Jodi Hildebrandt's assets to be used to cover care for abused children. I like that idea. I think the children should get it all. Right? Washington County, Utah. Kevin Franke, the soon-to-be ex-husband, is it though? Are you sure? Is he really going through with a divorce? I wonder. Oh yeah, Scorpion says it may have been a visitation. That's my assumption. Yeah, could be that as well. Paula said, thanks for doing both interviews. It's my pleasure. So, Kevin Franke, when was this article published? It was published on January 16th of 2024. Okay, so before the sentencing even. Kevin Franke, the soon-to-be ex-husband of Ruby Franke, asked a judge on Friday for restitution from Jodi Hildebrandt for the 2 children who suffered abuse by her and his wife. Ruby Franke, who ran the YouTube channel 8 Passengers, and Hildebrandt, founder of Connections Classroom, both pleaded guilty to several counts of aggravated child abuse after one of Ruby's children escaped through the window of a house owned by Hildebrandt, according to court documents. Police said the child had duct tape on the ankles and wrists and was asking a neighbor for food and water. Now Kevin Franke is requesting Hildebrandt's assets to be used to pay for the medical and therapeutic care for the abuse 2 children faced. Yes, but for all the children. Okay. Those children have undergone medical care, psychological assessments, and mental health treatments to help them recover from the abuse they faced. They will need care long-term, well beyond Hildebrandt's scheduled February sentencing, the court documents state. According to the court documents, once the case concludes around September of 2024, the costs for the care the children need will fall upon the children and their father, Kevin Franke. This would be a completely inequitable result, that the victims and victims' family would have to pay for their own treatment for injuries caused by Hildebrandt, the court documents state. The court documents allege that Hildebrandt has resources from which the restitution could be funded, but that may not be the case soon, as the resources could be liquidated and become unavailable. Under the Crime Victims Restitution Act, the child victims are entitled to restitution that will compensate for any and all ongoing treatment of these injuries, the court documents state. Hildebrandt allegedly has assets and resources that would be enough to help pay for the restitution in the form of real estate, financial accounts, and other personal property. According to the court documents, Kevin Franke discovered that on January 4th, Hildebrandt listed her Ivins, Utah home and property for sale. And for $5.3 million, you guys. Giovanna, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Yes. $5.3 million. This was at least one of the locations where the crimes were allegedly committed against the children. Kevin Franke's attorney argued the children should be entitled to a share of any profit that home makes, which is listed there at 5.1. When I saw it online, it's 5.3, to provide the restitution. The filing asked the court to restrain Hildebrandt from signing, disposing of, concealing, or transferring the property until Hildebrandt's sentencing on February 20th. So they were already sentenced now, but wow. Okay, so I think yesterday we watched a whole lot of videos. Today we watched Kevin Franke's police interview, the video one. We also listened to the audio one, which that escalated. That got interesting. So let me know in the comments below what you want to see. If you want me to continue covering the case, we could still look at the sentencing. There's probably still some other audio files and things like that. We could look at the interviews that Jodi Hildebrandt's niece did as well. Things like that. So, and there's still many things to discuss, of course. Like, I've got a notebook full of things now as I just go around trying to find out as much about this, because this happened in plain sight, you know. And I don't know if you guys know a channel called Swoop. She always says, it's not drama, it's dangerous. Well, this case is the perfect example of that, you know. It started off, when people started reporting about it and flagging the channel, as I say, that started off almost like drama of just like, how do we know? How do we know? There's no proof. There's no CPS can't get in there. The police can't get in there. There's no actual proof of what's going on behind closed doors. We can see what's going on camera. But there's many families that do that type of exploitation on YouTube, right? But now we know. And it's absolutely devastating. It's just terrible what happened to these kids. And we don't even know. There could be so much more. Shame. I'm so glad that they survived as well. Because this could have easily been a case where the kids would not have made it. Yeah. They were so emaciated. I don't know how long they would have still survived, right? Even mentally. Oh my goodness. So thank you so much for watching and listening to all of this today with me. I really appreciate it. And let's learn as much as we can from this. Please like and share if you do like the way that I present true crime cases. And yeah, read the room. Look out for the red flags. Remember, Laura Richards always says her channel is called Crime Analyst. Her website is thelaurarichards.com. I did a course with her on coercive control. And cults fall under that banner a lot of the time, of course. And she always says, coercive control, if you had to summarize, what is it? It's unfreedom. It's when people really, you don't have no boundaries, you have no say, you have no self-worth anymore. It's unfreedom. So spot those red flags and run. And if people react negatively to you setting a boundary, those are the exact people that need the boundaries. If someone loves you and respects you, cares about you, and you set a boundary, they should be only too happy to be like, okay, I understand, I'm so sorry, or no problem. But when they fight you, or they get that viper vibe, you know, venom, okay, for you, well, no, those are the exact people that need those boundaries. Yes. Heather, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everyone who supported the channel today. If you haven't yet checked out Patreon, please do check it out. Check out my website as well, grizzlytruecrime.com. There's lots there to read, and there's a support page. If you want to buy the mods coffees, you can. If you want to buy me coffee, you can. And if you haven't checked out Patreon, do check it out. Okay, I will be going back down the rabbit hole. I've been there for a while now. So back to it I go, and I'll hopefully bring you something again tomorrow on this case. But there's many cases to talk about, and I'll see you again very soon. Okay, thank you. Bye.